Wolfpack, what is going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street, RotoStreetJournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves here with your Week 9 sit-start shows. Let's get it midway through the season. We have reached halftime, folks, and you need to come out swinging. So we are here to dive on in and answer all of your questions. As you can probably tell, this is from my in-laws' house, not my own usual spot. I love recording here, hanging out with the Golden all morning. It's been great. So now we are going to answer all the questions, though, from 8 to 10. We got a full mailbag already. You love to see it. Before we go live, thank you so much for spending your Sunday mornings here with me. As always, we'll start with a couple quick Thursday Night Football takeaways. We do have a decent amount of news to cover, but should be done with all that about 20 minutes or so. So get those questions on in, keep filling the mailbag, and if at any point you enjoy what you are hearing, whether you're on Twitter with that heart button, the thumbs up on YouTube, the thumbs up on Facebook for those of you that still watch over there, thank you again so much. If you like what you're hearing, that really does help boost us out. The shares, the likes, the retweets, all that good stuff. Thanks again so much for being here. Let's dive into a couple quick Thursday Night Football takeaways. And I thought very interesting to see both Garrett Wilson and Davante Adams eat. And I think this could be the expectation moving forward. We had Adams get 11 targets leading the team there, 7 catches, 91 yards, and the score there against the Texans. But it was actually more productive day for Garrett Wilson, 10 targets, so not too far behind, 9 catches, 90 yards, and 2 scores, 2 insanely impressive touchdowns, especially that last one with the shin and everything. One of the best catches I've ever seen in my life. He is just so talented. I know all the talk was, is Garrett Wilson truly a number one receiver? Is he truly one of the best receivers in the league? If he's not doing it with Rodgers as the quarterback excuse, run its course here. And I think he clearly proves week in and week out he is just so damn good. And Rodgers isn't just he might not be that good anymore. He does okay, though, this game for fantasy, 211 yards, 3 touchdowns over the Texans, getting to about 20 fantasy points for you. So good to see Davante finally make his big splash, looking like Davante Adams on this game. And Garrett Wilson just reminding you, yeah, this is not a 1 and 2. This is a 1A type of situation nearly. They'll be neck and neck each and every week like this. And it goes to show you, only 31 yards went to other players. 180 of 211 yards for Aaron Rodgers went to these 2 studs. So it's not like they cannot coexist, which is beautiful to see. The only real Texans notes, it's tough because there were so many injuries here. But Tank Dell, target hog. It was good to see 9 targets, 126 yards as the clear-cut top guy. A lot of people worried this isn't the same Tank Dell. The guy cannot get it done without the other weapons around him, and even then, he's just kind of fizzling in the dark. I think Tank Dell really did show, like, hey, if I get this opportunity, it seems like Nico Collins is due back next week anyways, but we saw last year, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, they thrived when on the field together. In fact, Tank Dell scored more points per game than Nico Collins for a great stretch of that time. He was more productive on a per-snap basis, as good as Nico was, too, on yards per around the top 3 in the league. So I am excited and encouraged by this game from Tank Dell. The one thing is it's still just not C.J. Stroud from last year, though, and that's why I do question whether this might be a good time to just sell Tank Dell off the biggest game of the year. You can play up the Diggs injury here, but 191 yards for C.J. Stroud, under 200 yards yet again, something we rarely saw last year. That is becoming a routine occurrence and very disappointing there. Really nobody else was notable there for the Texans. Schultz, another 6 targets, another useless effort, 21 yards, 3 targets. We told all of you to bench him. Like, a lot of people wondering, could this be the night with everybody hurt? Nope. Thankfully, hopefully you guys listened and did not play him. 44 yards and 2 catches for Robert Woods, and that was about the most noteworthy secondary receiver, so clearly nothing else to really dive into for there. In terms of the backs as well, Breece Hall, a nice efficient 74 yards, 15 carries, but not really what you're expecting from your top 7 overall pick here. 2 catches for 11 yards, just a very disappointing season overall. He's fine. He's getting you something. He should probably have been like a 2nd-round pick if this is what we're going to get. Braylon Allen, at the minimum, though, for Hall, did barely sniff the field there. After a week where he saw 12 carries, we did not see him nearly involved as this week. So a little bit of a silver lining, I guess, for Breece Hall, but still very disappointing. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, Mixon reminding you, like, yep, I'm one of the best picks of the league that you could have made this year. 24 carries, 106 yards, and a touchdown. The only disappointment was, 91 of those yards were in the first half. It looked like he was off to a nearly 200-yard day, and ultimately he just kind of fizzled out there in the second half. But still, you're not going to complain about nearly 20 fantasy points from the guy. He has been an absolute monster all season. Alrighty, guys, that just wraps up, again, all the Thursday night football takeaways. We are going to dive into some news after we hit a couple super chats. Thank you guys so much, Steven, starting us off bright and early here with a super chat. Thank you so much, Steven. Half PPR. Would you start Hunt or Hubbard? Also, would you wait on McMillan or play Coker? Great questions from you, Stephen Drakes. Thanks again so much. Every week you come in here, super chatting your boy, and I greatly appreciate it. So for the first one, Hunt versus Hubbard, that pretty easily for me is Hunt here. I know that the New Orleans matchup is as good as it gets, especially these last 4 weeks. I believe they're second most in terms of rushing yards and fantasy points allowed to running backs. They've been getting killed, and we know that Jonathan Brooks is not back this week. So Hubbard, it's okay. Certainly the volume will be there for him again, but anytime he's playing with Bryce Young, I really second guess if I want this guy in my lineup. And usually I fall upon no, I don't. And just because you're going to get the volume, I do not think he is a great play. The matchup's there, the volume's there. It seems like it should be, but he's just my running back 24 for the week, a few spots below the ECR. We saw last week his first game back with Bryce Young and 8 points. And it's kind of carried the trend. I mean, just watch it. 25, 20, 16, 13, 11, then 8. Literally just going down by a few points every week. At this point, he'll be at 5 points this week, the way this is trending. It's just much less productive here to have Chuba Hubbard with Bryce Young. It was a tough matchup against Denver, too. So I do think the guy has some upside, but it's also the fact that I really like Kareem Hunt this week. He's been rock solid, 27, 22, and 21 carries in 3 straight weeks here, really established himself as that clear focal point. Tampa Bay, middle of the road matchup here. I think they will have no problem. What I really love is they're going to just move this ball at will against the Tampa Bay Bucks. And so I think there's definitely 2 touchdown upside, the potential to get one of those monster games. Hunt himself has not been great with the work, averaging under 21 carries for 59 yards last week, like less than 2.5 a pop. Not great, but still getting into the end zone. He's scored in 4 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks, and I expect at least 1 score, possibly 2 of them. And he's getting some decent receiving work as well. Not great, but he's got a couple catches every game. So give me the guy in the offense that I think is going to move the ball at will with touchdown upside. I lean definitely Chuba Hubbard there. And in terms of the second one, McMillan or Coker, Coker's going to be one of the guys we talk about quite a lot today. One of the title boys of the show, Holy Cross Pride there. Very rarely can I do a sit start and recommend a guy from Holy Cross, where I went to college. So I almost have to take advantage of this day. It does get really tricky, though, because I also do love McMillan. And if I had the option of both of these guys, I think I'm leaning McMillan still. And the biggest reason why is Sterling Shepard went down last week, unlikely to play on Monday, so it seems. And we ultimately, the thing we were hoping for McMillan is, does he take over that Chris Godwin role? Does he become the slot guy? And we saw Sterling Shepard logged 60% of the slot snaps among the wide receivers last week, and that's a concern. That's an issue. And McMillan was fine. He led the team in targets. He had, a nice end-around play and ultimately racked up 52 total yards and got you 7 points. And he was okay, but certainly underwhelming compared to what a lot of us think his upside really could be. And so I understand why people might be more hesitant, but if that slot role gets opened up, we're talking about a receiver that played 67% of his routes from the slot in college. Maybe he just is in an ill-filling role so far, and now the path is that much clearer. We just know how good the design targets have been for Chris Godwin. It's a Cooper Kupp-inspired role, and he was killing it. So ultimately, could McMillan, he's not going to do what Godwin was doing. I'm not saying that, but if he gets used in a even semi-similarly way, I think it's a no-brainer. And we know I think they're going to need to chase some points against Kansas City. That offense seemed to be finding its groove last week. And the Tampa Bay defense is it creates shootout after shootout each and every week. It's pathetic. So ultimately, I love targeting that game. I love getting the pieces in there. And as much as I'm intrigued by Coker, he still plays with Bryce Young. If it was Andy Dalton today at QB, I would feel, I'd probably just lock him in every lineup. I know I'm crazy, but again, Holy Cross boy, when do I get to recommend that? But with it being Bryce Young at QB, despite the 2 cornerback injuries in New Orleans, if I have a guy like McMillan, I would be playing him over Coker myself. And I'm hyped up to play Coker too. So it tells you that I do really like McMillan. So for this one, Steven, I'm going to go Hunt, and I'm going to go McMillan there. Thank you again so much, Steven. I think every Sunday, like, consistently, you support your boy, you keep the lights on. It is so greatly appreciated. We got another super chat. Mountain Man always super chatting as well. The regulars always, you guys are the best. Thank you so much, Mountain Man, as always. PPR, pick two, Hubbard, Cook, Connor, Jones, and Cup. Whew. Now, man, you got yourself quite a squad here. I feel like in the PPR setting here, I have to go Cooper Cup. It would have been even easier of a smash should Puka have sat. Obviously, we haven't gotten to the receiver news yet, but it does seem like Puka is expected to play. But could Puka ultimately be limited? Could he have a flare up? There's a risk there. And ultimately, last week, though, it was like Puka, questions about his health, and he comes in here, smashes 9 targets, 7 catches, 106 yards. I'm cool playing Puka today. There's no doubt about it. I can only watch him go off on the bench so many times. That being said, Cooper Kupp still had a fine day himself. Ultimately found the end zone, 51 yards. They were within a point of each other in half-point PPR leagues. And the matchup against Seattle is nothing to be worried about. They're so banged up all over the defense. So in PPR, where you can get those kind of dink and dunk points, I do really like Kupp. That being said, though, I mean, you have Cook absolutely killed it last week. How do you put Cook on the bench against Miami, who ultimately is giving top 5 points up to running backs? I definitely have James Cook as my favorite option here. And I look at it, I'm like, okay, it's not Hubbard for me, as we talked about. Again, worried about the Bryce Young-led offense, worried about every single week he's going down in points. The matchup's great. The volume should be there. He just seems to be losing steam, and the offense as a whole is just pathetic. But I love James Cook this week. Definitely not benching him. And I love Aaron Jones. I mean, teams are averaging the highest run percent against the Colts more than any other because they're just an absolute sev on the ground. Another top 5 matchup for your running backs. And we're coming off a week where Aaron Jones saw every single running back touch for them. So I limit this one down to Aaron Jones, Cook, and Kupp. I also like James Conner. You have some great options here, Mountain Man. Maybe you could pull off a deal where you package like Conner and A. Jones and you get Derrick Henry or Saquon, or maybe you do like Conner and Kupp and you get yourself Justin Jefferson. Capitalize on this depth. It's great to have, but as we get closer and closer to the playoffs, you're going to want to condense and get yourself the best possible starters here. So I lean, gun to my head, I would probably start Cook and Aaron Jones. As much as I would like to get Kupp in there, I see a hard time benching Aaron Jones. The good news too, I guess, because the Kupp's at a later game and then Aaron Jones is the night game. If for whatever reason Puka gets ruled out, like, you cannot bench Kupp. So play James Cook, get him fired up at 1 o'clock, and then we kind of figure it out from there. But I would be going Cook and one of Jones or Kupp. And honestly, I'm leaning Aaron Jones here. I think he'll run all over the Colts tonight. As good as Cooper Kupp is, he looked a little bit like, again, it was the Puka show on the Thursday Night Football when Puka returned. So ultimately, I very slightly lean Aaron Jones here over Kupp, but very close. Thank you again, Mountain Man, for the support. Great team to have those type of options. I am jealous. In one of my 12-team leagues, the injuries have just mounted to the point where I'm like debating Jalen Coker and Dontavian Wicks, and you're over here like, I got to bench James Conner and Cooper Kupp. Ugh. Fantasy, isn't it fun? Andrew Coombs, thank you so much. I see that you super chat twice. If you ever, it's probably because your question didn't go up with the first one. My man, if that happens again, we do have the best man on the sticks behind there, Mr. Moderator, David Campanelli. He would be happy to find your question in the future. You don't have to super chat twice. Very generous of you. Thank you so much for doing so. But we'll make sure to find your question. It has happened before where people super chat, but then the question doesn't go with it. And we will always make sure to find that one, dig it up in the comments. But thank you again for the double super chat. It's very generous of you. Was not necessary, but very appreciated for sure. Andrew Combs, 2 spots, Brian Thomas, Downs, or Tracy. Wow. That is a very, very tough one. Oh, man. So to me, Tracy, I'm locking him in. Like, we saw what he did against Pittsburgh, a defense that very few running backs have been running on. He goes 20 carries, 145 yards, and a touchdown, 22 half PPR fantasy points. The running back 4 last week against a very, very good defense. And Washington has stiffened up a ton. They're definitely not there's some great podcasts that came out this week about what matchups used to look like they were smashes on paper and are no longer. And the Washington defense as a whole, but especially in the secondary, they've gotten a lot better over the course of the year. It makes sense under Dan Quinn, blah, blah, blah. It's not the defense that you have to target like you used to. It's still not a terrifying defense, though. So to me, the way that he is absolutely cooking, the way he took over this backfield, 80% of the touches, he's the man, and he looks so good. He's so shifty. He's so clean with the ball in his hands. He's a great receiver as a converted wide receiver. Shocker that he's great and that type of element. His route tree is far more expansive than your typical running back. And Brian Dable, a creative play caller, as bad as the offensive line is, it's a unique and interesting running scheme. And Tracy's doing a great job finding all the gaps possible. So I can't bench him. I absolutely love Brian Tracy, which is really tough because I love both of these. Not Brian Tracy, Tyrone Tracy. Brian Thomas was on the tip of the tongue there because I love him and I love Josh Downs too. Josh Downs averaging 19.2 fantasy points per game with Joe Flacco. Minnesota giving up the most points to wide receivers. It seems like an absolute smash here. I don't see much reason to not go that direction, except for the fact that Brian Thomas is an absolute smash play as well. Philadelphia, a top 3 matchup for wide receivers. They're absolutely cooking right now, putting up over 30 points last week. So we know they're likely the Jags going to need to throw the ball at will against them. And Brian Thomas, I mean, you look at his half PPR production the last 5 weeks, 19-21, that 1 4-point dud, then 20 and 14. The kid's been an absolute stud. So you're making this one really hard because then I'm like, okay, maybe I do bench Tracy for these 3. Andrew Combs. I love them all. They're also, both receivers are in my top 15 for the week. Tracy's in my top 20 running backs. The scoring settings, I don't want to cop out on a scoring setting, like, it changes things. Downs does get a good boost, though, in full PPR, just because he's going to be a more steady source of, you're probably locking in 10 targets for Downs. Whereas Thomas, he might only get 5 or 6, but he's going to go absolutely bananas on the ones that he gets. I'm leaning Thomas and Tracy are the 2 I play. Downs is safer than Tracy. So if you're like, again, not to hedge on this answer, but you want to consider all the context. If you are a 10-point favorite, like right now I'm a 10-point underdog in my matchup, I would be rolling out Thomas because he just has the bigger ceiling as banked as you can get on like Downs getting him 12 to 15 points with Joe Flacco. It's pretty much a lock, I would say. Again, averaging 19.2 PPR points. In full PPR, it's probably the play. You just go light it up. He's a top 5 receiver in points per game in that format. But in a half PPR, and especially if I'm an underdog or even in an even situation, Brian Thomas is the play for me, and then Tracy. I know I spent a decent amount of time on that one, but these are 3, Andrew, of the most talked about guys this week. And so I wanted to really dive in deep. Hopefully, those of you out there that prompt some more questions. I won't spend this long on every answer, I promise. But those are going to be 3 of the biggest guys to talk about. For me, though, I do go Tracy and Brian Thomas, acknowledging a little more risk to Thomas. So if you want to play it safer, you're the favorite, or you'd like the more guaranteed points, it would be Downs and Tracy. But I like Tracy and Brian Thomas myself, Andrew. That's what I would play in the vast majority of situations. Thank you for the support, too, the double support. You did not need to do that, and it's greatly appreciated, though. So thank you for that. We also have the figure report coming in with need 2 out of 3, Dowdle, BTJ, Waddle, and I have Deontay, too. Deontay's not going to enter the conversation over these 3, and to me, it's definitely BTJ. That's like the tier above the rest of these guys. And I think I'm going to lean Dowdle for the other one, the figure report. Waddle, same amount of targets, same type of usage as Jonnu Smith last week. That doesn't feel great. That's not what I'm going for. So until I see Waddle get it back going, it's great to have Tua back. The offense as a whole looked so much better. Waddle's the one that still hasn't really got it going. I certainly think he could. I think he's a pretty interesting buy low right now, and always will have that upside. Like if something ever happened to Tyreek, a smash top 10 wide receiver play. For right now, though, BTJ can't bench the guy. We just talked about him at great length. And then Dowdle, no Zeke Elliott, had already been kind of taking this backfield over. I don't love him. It's not like I have to get Dowdle into my lineups this week, but he's guaranteed to be about a 65 to 70% player this week. What if the Cowboys finally get it together? Yeah, how many weeks are we going to say that for? And he could be running for his job this week, too. There's a lot of rumblings, maybe Khalil Herbert. There's some trade rumors around running backs right now. So Dowdle's going to come out with his guns a-blazing. Falcons are a pretty decent run defense, easier to be had on the pass than the run there. But I think Dowdle's a good bet, especially with Zeke, like no risk of a goal line flying. And then Dalvin Cook will come in and steal the goal line touchdown, right? But I think this is a good spot to use Dowdle, BTJ. Waddle's kind of gotten to the point where it's like, prove to me I can use you again before I do it. Unless you're starting like Jalen Coker, like me. Deontay more so would love to see what he does with the Ravens. And that's going to be a tough situation moving forward, just because The defense is pretty bad this year, so I do think more weeks than not, we're going to have them pushed. And that's awesome. That's why Lamar is absolutely murdering people in fantasy this year. So there is going to be a good amount of volume more weeks than not, but we have seen a few weeks where they threw it 29% of the time. And now that you add a target commander like Deontay to Zay Flowers, who already is killing it, similar areas of the field. Mark Andrews finally coming out of his shell. I think that's going to become a mess to project each and every week. So that worries me. It's weird that I would have probably preferred him to stay in Carolina, and probably not with Bryce Young, but it's ugly. Real life wise, it's going to be a nightmare for defenses to defend. Fantasy wise, I think it's going to be a complete headache. So I'm going BTJ and Dowdle. Make Waddle prove it to me, the figure report. Bench 3.5 PPR for Chris. Thank you so much, Chris, for the super chat. So we got Mooney, Downs, Dobbs, Hopkins, Sutton, Chubb, Dobbins, and one of them has to be a running back. So for the running back, I would make it Dobbins. That would be the guy. So then we have to bench 3 more. Definitely not benching Downs. Sutton in a great matchup, coming off a ton of volume. I want to lock him in. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have to bench 3 of these 7. I would say I'm probably benching Tampa Bay, and he's probably going to be more active. Great question, Chris, because these guys are all very similarly. Like the only one that I have a tier above the rest is Downs. So I'm locking him in, not thinking about that. And then, of course, Dobbins is the other guy for the running back that you have to lock in. So we need 2 of the remaining 4. This is a really tough one because these guys are all, again, in that same tier to me. I think I'm lighting up Mooney. He's been such a volume hog. And then I think I'm benching Chubb in this one. Let's continue to see him get his legs under him. Tough matchup against a Chargers team that hasn't given up more than 20 points in a single game yet this year. But I think Ladd can have a little day. They can be passed upon. Much stiffer run defense. You got Dobbs in a shootout game and a lot of man coverage, which is he's better at than Jaden Reed. You got Hopkins coming in and getting Tampa Bay, one of the best matchups for passing games and hopefully more acclimated to the offense. But that's not a guarantee. This is a complex Andy Reid scheme, and we saw Hopkins play a very light role. There's got to be a game where he comes out very, very possibly this week and is in that kind of diet Rashee Rice, the role we saw Juju Smith-Schuster put up 7 for 130. Could be as early as this week. And that's going to be tough to watch happen on your bench, but then you can feel very confident about him moving forward. So to me, I'm playing Downs, Mooney, Sutton, Dobbins is how I would play this. And I'm benching Dobbs and Hopkins and Chubb is how I would do that one, Chris. A lot of great options. And they're all in the same tier. So that's what makes it tough is like when I tier people, it's like you could bump this guy over this guy if you have a gut feeling or whatnot. And the only one that's really not in the same tier as those guys, I'd say Downs is a tier above those guys. Dobbins is probably a tier above Chubb too for the running back choice. But then all those receivers are all, 25 to 35 for me. They're all in that smush. So it is tough to project. So if you had a gut call about any of those guys, by all means, it's totally justifiable to follow it. To me, Mooney, Downs, Sutton, and Dobbins would be the plays. Thank you so much for the super chat, Chris. Papa Sarno coming in with a half PPR, need 1 running back. And Papa, thank you so much. You're always super chatting. Hope you had a good Halloween. It was great to see you pop up on that Thursday stream this week. Need 1 receiver, 1 running back, and a flex. Got Dobbins, Connor, Tracy, Marv, Deontay, and Downs. Traded Connor for Nico, and it will process this week. I love that move. I think you absolutely bought low on Nico, capitalized Connor. At some point he's going to have that injury. As sad and that is to say, it's true. It happens every year, and maybe he doesn't. And even if not, Connor for Nico straight up. Even if you got Connor the rest of the year, you won that trade. No down digs the rest of the year. I gotta inquire to the Nico owners in some leagues and see if I can get him. If that's the price tag these days, awesome move. Just wanted to shout you out for that. That's a great move. But we need 1 running back, 1 receiver, and a flex out of these options. So for the running back, I do like Tracy. And I like Connor a lot this week too. So my guess is he's going to be the flex. But I like going Tracy. I like going Connor at the Downs and Marv, though. It's half PPR. Okay. So Tracy and Downs are my favorite options here. It comes down to Marv versus Connor for the flex decision. And that's that old classic, like floor versus ceiling debate. Marv coming off a great game. And there's rumblings that like he kind of went up to Drew Petzing and was like, "Hey, why don't we test out more of these slant things? I was one of the best slant runners in college. I could open at will." And they're like, "Okay, let's give it a go." Which asinine that this is an NFL offense, and the receiver had to point out like, "Hey, I was pretty good at this. Like, you picked me at 4 overall. Can we run more of these, please?" Idiotic, but nonetheless, it happened, and that's a good thing for his value. I'm not going to sit here and complain that it finally happened. Uh, so I love what I saw. I think the volume could start to really steady out for him. It is a little trickier because Connor's just like you're going to get your 20 carries, you're going to get your touches, man. And we know Drew Petzing for all the shade I want to throw him right now for his passing game. The man can call a solid run game, like very solid, one of the better run game coordinators in the league. Chicago is easier against running backs. I would, because here's the thing, like you got the ceiling game out of Marv last week, and it was only like a couple points better than James Conner. So I think in the vast majority of situations here, Papa Sarno, I am probably going to go James Conner. Just rock solid. Really only like 2 duds on the year. Yeah, I don't see that happening against Chicago today, who's a middle of the road matchup for running backs. So give me Downs, give me Tracy, give me Connor. Man, that's tough to bench guys like Marv, Dobbins. Another thing that like you already pulled off a complete fleecing for Nico here. You send O'Connor one last time, right? Hey, we appreciate everything you've done for the boys. Let's ride you out one last time, James. Earn your keep here. Fingers crossed for him too. That like this deal continues to go through for you. I imagine there's some sort of injury clause on it, but great options and maybe some more depth you can capitalize on there. Papa Sarno. Anthony Fella, what's good? Always super chatting. You guys are so generous. We've already got 12 super chats. We haven't even hit the news yet today. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for your support of the show. So generous of you guys. Thank you so much. And there are already 800 of you here. I love to see it. This is every Sunday. You guys, it just continues to humble me. Please do consider, if you like what you're hearing, that thumbs up button on YouTube, the heart button on Twitter, the shares, the retweets. It really does help us go. I know I say it a lot. I know I'm probably annoying you, but it goes such a long way. I would not ask for it so incessantly if it was not very helpful. So thank you again, guys, so much for being here and for all these generous super chats. You guys are the best. Wolfpack, what's good? Start one in the flex full PPR. Connor, TJ Moore, or C. Tillman. Thanks as always. Cheers and cheers to you, Mr. Fella. I'm gonna go Connor here. I know full PPR, the receivers have the upside, and man, it's so crazy that like if this was just down to the receivers, I would honestly be considering Tillman over DJ Moore. I've never I like DJ Moore the player, I do, but in fantasy I've never really overly invested in the guy. It's a tricky offense to project now that Keenan Allen's arrived. The volume week in and week out, 4 and 4 points in back-to-back weeks here. So he's like the distant third. I actually would play Cedric Tillman over him. And then it becomes, okay, Connor versus Tillman. And in a full PPR, it's so hard to bench Tillman right now, which, again, I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth. But 12 targets and 9 targets back-to-back weeks from Jameis Winston, too. And we know Winston is the kingmaker at wide receiver. Will he frustrate you real life-wise? Will he throw up some bad picks? Sure. Fantasy-wise, the dude makes – I love Jameis. I'm so happy he's getting his chance again. And he's absolutely thriving with it. Again, 18 and 29 points for Cedric Tillman these past 2 weeks. Oh, the matchup, we talked about the Chargers, not great on paper. Ultimately, I have not given up more than 20 real-life points to a single team this year. Harbaugh, Roman, stiffening up the defense, all that. It's true. It's happened. And they like to bleed you out on the offense so you don't get as many plays. I wouldn't be shocked, though. Jameis kind of pushes them out of their comfort zone. We have seen the Chargers throwing at a 5% higher pass rate over expectation, which is crazy because they were so negative for the first 3 weeks. 23 pass attempts for Justin Herbert in his first 3 games and 35 pass attempts per game across his last 3. So we're seeing them start to open that offense up a bit. Ultimately, we have him probably fully healthy. That's probably part of that as well. So I do think there's a path to that game becoming a little more sexy. I'm playing a lot of Tillman and McConkey in DFS. I love stacking those two up against each other. So I'm going deep into this one, fella, because Tillman is very, very intriguing. And Connor should be the easy, like, James Conner is going to get you 15, lock him in. But man, like Tillman is so. How do you bench the dude the way he's rolling right now? Um, so I do think. I think I'd go Connor. I just feel safer. I feel more secure. Like if the Tillman experience just randomly went up in flames, it's like, oh, that was a great 2 week flash. But like, oh yeah, it's Cedric. I just do think he's really good, and I think he's the type of guy that does thrive with Jameis Winston. So like, I don't think it's a fluke. I don't think this is just a flash in the pan, and that's what makes this a really hard question because I believe in the guy. You have a great option in Connor, like a locked in 15 points with the ceiling for 20. We know that Connor does have that upside. He's not a zero in the passing game at all. He's a great receiver, a great protector. That's why he plays you 80% of the snaps every game. Oh, man, this is harder than it should be. I'd probably, if I was staring this decision down, I would likely click Connor's name. Again, not to play the hedge game. It is a situation where if I was an underdog, like I use my own situation, my Fez league, my main league, I was facing Tank Dell, Fairbairn, and I have a lot of injuries. I'm down to a 40% for a 60% projection right now. In that case, I'm playing Tillman. I'm going for the Hail Mary. I'm going for the 20-point outburst. His ceiling is higher than Connor. But I think in most leagues, most situations, I would take the guaranteed. I mean, you look at the workload, and 4 of the last 5 games, he's seen 18 or more carries and 3 or more targets. Like that's so tough to turn down. And Kyler Murray's playing better these days, so that the touchdown equity gets a nice little boost there. I'm gonna roll with Connor and play it safe in 90% of situations, unless I was a 20% or more underdog, like 60-40 type of situation. I would pivot to Tillman. It's just crazy that like Tillman's become that valuable in fantasy within a 2 week span that like Connor, a top 15 running back, and him are to debate. The thing is, DJ Moore is not on the tip of mind. He could blow up any given week. I don't want to keep trying to project that. What's up, AR Cannabis? You always support the Hugh fella. All the regular supporters, you guys are so kind, and it is so genuinely appreciated, guys. AR Cannabis consistently showing your boy some love. Where are you? So AR Cannabis, where are you based out of? I don't know if you're like a dispensary or something somewhere, but hey, it's always cool to find a fellow friend in that sense. Warning Wolf, would you start Downs over Olave or D. Smith? And if not, would you Otten or Downs in the flex? AR, a great question here. I'm trying to remember because I know you've asked a bunch of super chats, a bunch of questions. Can't remember if you are full PPR or not. I would say this. I'd probably play all 3 receivers if that makes it easier for you. As much as I like Otten, and he's got the best matchup for tight ends. He's my tight end 4 of the week. He looks like he's going to be that number 1 option in this passing game until we see Mike Evans return. So I really do love Otten, but I look at these receiver options and I'm like, okay, Devonta Smith against the Jags, who give up far and away the most points to quarterbacks and wide receivers in the league. I know it's probably going to be an AJ Brown smash week, but it's really tough to like not think Devonta Smith could have himself coming off a 21-point day last week, So I'm going to go Devonta Smith there. He's my wide receiver 14, and Downs is right below him at 15. And then Olave, I have at 16. I actually was laughing. I just looked, I was like, well, they are literally 14, 15, and 16. We've had back-to-backs on the show before. I don't know if we've ever had back-to-back-to-back. So I do rank them Smith, Downs, and Olave. And I do think I'd rank all 3 of them ahead of Cade Otten. You look at Olave, and I mean, coming off a 14-target day himself, and who else is there? Bob Means on the IR, Kendra Miller. Not that changes all that much for the passing game, but another offensive weapon removed. I do think Taysom Hill comes back. He becomes more of a goal line vulture. But, I mean, with Spencer Rattler and, like, who the hell was the other one? Rippy? And I don't even remember who the other backup quarterback was last week. And he still put up 19 points in an unideal matchup, did Chris Olave. 14 targets, 8 catches, and 107 yards. So 19 in a PPR league at least. And if you play half, a very, very respectable 15 points there. I just don't see a world. I know him and Carr have never really truly connected on that level. And that's the one risk with Olave. That's why he's below these 3 guys in my ranking, the 2 guys rather. But like, who else is he going to have to go to? And Olave is just so talented. So I'm going to lean Chris Olave, Devonta Smith, and Josh Downs over Cade Otten this week. Again, reemphasizing that Josh Downs averages 19.2 PPR points per game with Joe Flacco as his quarterback tonight. So thank you again so much, AR Cannabis. Consistently super chatting your boy. But yeah, Otten regrettably finds my bench in this situation. Because at the end of the day, as good as he's been, it's K Dot. Perhaps, and I honestly think this is actually true with him. Maybe he's finally getting a chance to showcase that he is actually one of the better players, better receiving tight ends in the league. And he just was behind two absolute mammoth target hogs for so long. And that's why it was just kind of like, yeah, he runs all the routes and does absolutely nothing. He's not that good. Maybe not, maybe not. Maybe he's actually a pretty solid player overall. Some of the catches he was making, like I do think he's actually better than I would have ever believed if you ask me this. We talked about him as the you ate something. Like you got a bunch of routes, you ate a bag of chips, you drank a beer, you fell asleep, and you didn't make yourself dinner because you were just so tired. K-Dog got you something in your belly. But now he's actually giving you a meal. Now this is a guy that you would proudly start at your tight end spot. You must have, because you don't even mention like tight end. You must have Bowers, McBride, or Kelsey. Because K. Dotton, those are the only three I have above him. So maybe you're putting him in your tight end spot. Let me know who your tight end is. But yeah, I'm playing those wide receivers, AR Cannabis, above him. G. Medina. Bench Love if he plays to play Murray and Geno. I'm playing Love over Geno in a 2 QB league. No doubt about it, G. Medina. Thank you so much for the super chat as well. He's my quarterback 5. I'd play him over both these guys, but I would bench Geno well ahead of Love. No DK Metcalf. Better matchup against the Rams than last week against the Bills, but I do think this passing game is going to sputter until we see DK Metcalf back in the fray. So, yeah, I love Jordan Love. Facing Detroit, divisional shootout, one of the worst secondaries in the league. That he's going to be pushed more than he's ever been pushed this year. I love it. I got to play Love. The risk of injury is, of course, the main rub there. So is he the lowest floor? Probably. But, yeah, I think this is a setup that I absolutely love for Jordan Love in this situation. So I'm going Jordan Love, and I'm going Kyler Murray, who's had 20 points in 3 of his last 4 games. Kyler Murray has. Virginian Man. MHJ, Tillman, Chestnut, D-Hop, Bucky. Pick one for Food Standard. Don't know what Food Standard leagues are, but I'm scared of the MHJ matchup. I did take your advice on MHJ last week. Thanks. So I hope that means you played him because he had an absolute monster day for you, Virginian Man. And I still think I'm going to go back to the well here. I am scared of the matchup too. Chicago secondary is the real deal. There's no doubt about it. It's more so I'm very encouraged by the usage. If it helps to know who the other option would be for me, it would be Tillman. I would go either MHJ or Tillman in this situation. But ultimately, I do lean MHJ very, very slightly. But I think what we talked about earlier when I was answering an MHJ question, the fact that he requested, let's expand the route tree, let's do some of these easier looks, and again, asinine that he had to be the one to ask for it, and why it was just not obvious, like why you pick this guy at 4 and not have him do some of the routes that he's best at, and those in breakers, those outs, the easy, the layups. So that's what Marvin Harrison is perfect for, and we're not doing it consistently for him. But they did it last week. 7 targets were nice. The guy's a baller. It was just great to see it again. I do lean MHJ. The tougher matchup, it's scary. And if that does ultimately move you off of him, I think Tillman's the clear-cut best option here. D-Hop, again, soon enough, I do think he's going to work his way in that conversation. It could be as early as this week. You got the Bucks. You got a great matchup. But I want to see him fully into this offense, fully integrated, and not just opening things up for Travis Kelce like it was last time. He will eventually become like a diet Rashee Rice. But until then, I'm going to go MHJ for this one. Thank you so much, Virginia Man. I know you often super chat, and it's so greatly appreciated, helping keep the lights on over here at Roto Street Journal. All righty. Chris, thank you so much, brother, for the super chat here. Good morning to you as well. 2 wideouts and a flex needed here in full PPR, playing for your life. Well, hopefully we can save you, Chris. Let's bring you to life here. Mooney, Pittman, Chase Brown, Hopkins, Bucky, Wandale. Whew. Hopefully I can give you some life. This is a tough one. The ones that aren't tough for me here are Chase Brown. You're putting him in. That's their flex. Lock him in. We're not really thinking about anything else. So that does cross off Bucky, who I like this week, but no Zach Moss. Zach Moss doubtful. I can't imagine he plays against the Raiders, a top 3 matchup for running backs. Wheels up. Chase Brown is one of my favorite plays of the week. You can't tell me otherwise. So then we need 2 wideouts of this list. And it is tricky because full pool PPR, like that brings up Wan'Dale Robinson a bit. He's a PPR scam. That being said, he has cooled off quite a bit in these last few weeks. Just given the way Tracy's been playing, he's still 5 targets last week, 5 for 30. It's 8. Yeah, that's the thing. He's like, it's so okay. He's gonna get you 8, probably 10, but he's only had 8 in full PPR. He's last like it's a great floor, but there is just no ceiling to Wan'Dale Robinson. Whereas I look at Michael Pittman, and now you got Flacco coming in. Um, it's just such a huge. It cannot be understated how big of a difference this offense is. So, Anthony Richardson was, without exaggeration, the worst passing QB, under 50% completion rate in every single game. Whereas Flacco, 7-to-1 touchdown interception ratio in 3 games. We saw him last year as the quarterback 2 in fantasy points per game. He elevated Amari Cooper to the wide receiver 1 in points per game over that final stretch of the season, and we saw it this year. Like in the stretch of games that we saw significant work from Joe Flacco. Michael Pittman had 17, 15, and 13 PPR points. I love it. The whole ceiling is so much higher for this entire offense with him. So I have him actually the highest of these wide receivers. And I do think it's tough to not come back to Mooney as the other one here. Just he's been so rock solid in this offense. 19 points last week, and who was it? I think it was Fantasy Points I was listening to earlier this week, talking a lot about how in that Dallas game, well, one, Dallas is down like their top 2 corners, already nice. But even if they had him in, they've been really, really vulnerable to the side where Mooney mostly plays as well. So I'm lighting him up, and then you hope that the Dallas Cowboys push them. Again, I think it could be a coming out party for Hopkins this week. And I'm not afraid to put him in my lineup where I need him. So if I'm going Jalen Coker versus Hopkins, I'll probably go Hopkins in that case. But I think you have good enough options to sit and wait it out and see if this is the coming out party for Hopkins. And if it is, great. You go with him moving forward. Yeah, I'm going to go Pittman, Mooney, and Chase Brown for this one. Thank you so much, Chris, for the super chat. And Joe Hill, my goodness, so generous of you. So appreciated. Thank you so much, Joe, with the $10 super chat. Wow, that is so generous of you. Thank you, Joe. So much. 10-team standard. Need 1 receiver, 1 running back, 1 tight end. Jaden Reed, Waddle, Shakir, Lockett, Etienne, Tracy Jr., Ferguson, or Kraft at tight end. All righty, let's light this one up. So for the wide receiver, I am going Jaden Reed now that we have Jordan Love in. I know it's been underwhelming. It hasn't been great the last couple of weeks. This is the type of week, though, against the Lions. Top 3 matchup for wide receivers. Going to need their points. I'm just trying to – there we go. Get the lighting. The sunlight's kind of messing up the ring light. Hey, there we go. Now we're a little clearer over here. Hello, not just a shadow in the cave. Good to see you all. And now I look smart with my bookshelf behind me. Jaden Reed, though, is definitely the play here. Again, I know the last few weeks have been underwhelming, but when you look at his averages since Love took over last year, since he became a full-time player, Jaden Reed himself, it's still right around 19 fantasy points per game. He's such an explosive threat. Again, 3 and 4 targets. I get it. I know why it's frustrating. Less routes than Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs is the number 1, it seems, but Reed is by far, again, the more explosive guy. He already has a 33 and a 27-point day on the season. The 33 one coming against Philly, where they needed the points. It was kind of the most we've seen this team pushed, and the Lions are going to push you. And so I think this is the type of game that you want Jaden Reed in your lineup. So much more upside than the other guys. I like Shakir, too. I do. He's the next closest one, but Reed is the easy choice for me there. And then Etienne, I mean, I don't want to bench Tracy Jr., but Etienne is just rock solid. He's had over 25 points. You do standard league, so I know it's a little bit different, but that's all the more reason to play Reed too. Like the big play and touchdowns are that much more valuable in this type of format. And it goes with Etienne too. I know he's picked up a ton of receiving value. In fact, he's become the number 2 receiver in this offense over Jalen Waddle. That's why Waddle has taken such a major downturn. And the Bills are the most generous receiving team to running backs, giving up by far the most points there to running backs in the passing game. I know that doesn't fully benefit you in standard. You're not getting the reception points, but he's going to rip some big plays down the field as a pass catcher. I love Tracy. He's a phenomenal asset. But Etienne has not scored less than 26 full PPR points. I don't know exactly what it is standard for. I can quickly double check that for you. But he's just so rock solid. Yeah, he's in standard leagues, so he hasn't had fewer than 23 PPR points with Tua in the lineup, and it's been 16, 23, and 21 standard points with Tua in the lineup. So yeah, I'm firing up Devon Achane there. And then at tight end, I love Kraft. I mean, I guess that's a little bit feels like overloading here on uh, the Packers, but this is the type of week for it, like a shootout game against a bad secondary, an offense that is going to put up points with the Lions. I'm happy to double tap that one. If you prefer Ferguson, I did hear some stats about how he's the zone beater of this offense, and Falcons run a ton of zone. But again, that's going to help you out in like a PPR league, a half PPR league, where you're getting the dink and dunk points. You're getting 8 catches for 40 yards. Well, it's only 4. Why not take the shot at a big play down the field to Tucker Kraft? We've seen big plays, we've seen touchdowns. In your scoring settings, Joe, I think it makes a lot of sense to just double it up on the Packers, hope for a shootout game, which I feels very, very likely. The only risk with doing that is, well, again, there's a lot of else defeats. I shouldn't say the only risk, but if Jordan Love goes down, then yeah, that bet you're dead in the water. But I really, again, even with Malik Willis, like Reed, we've seen him make some big catches from Willis too. In this setting, Reed is the no-brainer. Shakir is the next closest receiver and is probably 15 spots away. HN, the no-brainer. Ferguson versus Kraft is a little harder. And in a PPR league, I would go Ferguson. So if you wanted to spread the wealth, like if that's where you want to get off the Packers, minimize the risk and not like, what if Love does get hurt? What if this game isn't quite what we expect? Then I could see you going Ferguson. Yeah, you can't bench Reed. You can't bench HN. You could potentially do Ferguson over Kraft because Ferguson can score his touchdowns. Not great. He scored the fewest touchdowns per expectation last year, and this year hasn't been the biggest touchdown scorer either. But he can. So that's where you could make a switch. But me personally, I'm just going to fire up Reed, HN, and Kraft is how I would light that one up. Thank you guys so much. I mean, a $10 super chat. Joe Hill, that's no joke. You guys are also generous. So everybody, thank you so much. But Joe, especially, that is so kind and generous of you. And we still got more. You guys are so incredible and so appreciated. Thank you again for all these super chats. You guys are awesome. Standard League, need 2 running backs and a flex. B-Rob, Chase Brown, Tracy, and Tillman. So I would say the locks for me are Chase Brown and Tracy. I have them ahead of B-Rob. And then it comes down to B-Rob and Tillman Frank for the flex situation. Again, Chase Brown, you guys know the deal. Zach Moss, doubtful. Light him up. I could see a monster day. I need it. Those are my 2 bias disclosure here. Tracy and Brown are my 2 running backs in the league. My most important league, and I really need them to step up, get me to CMC next week, and I can continue pushing for the playoffs here. So I have some bias, but I think my bias is justified. They're 2 explosive guys looking at major workloads. I can't bench them right now. So I love Brown. I love Tracy. It's tough in a standard league. Like B-Rob is sturdy, steady, safer than Tillman. But I just see what Tillman's doing right now, and I have a hard time benching him. And B-Rob versus him, B-Rob's safer. There's no doubt about it, Frank. He has been lights out, rock solid. Gets the Giants. The script should be right. Yeah, I would lean B-Rob. It's safer in a standard league. Tillman might go 8 for 80, and that's awesome. But that's only 8 points for you. Whereas B-Rob, I look at his standard game log right here: 15, 14, 10, 17, 14, 13, and 8. Like last week was the season low. He was questionable, but he still saw 16 carries. He's playing at a really high level. And the Giants are the perfect spot for, all right, we're up by 2 touchdowns. Let's bleed it out with B-Rob. Let's go. So I'm going to go B-Rob very, very slightly over Tillman. Like my guts keep saying, like, switch it to Tillman. Great options. Very tough. But in a standard especially, I think B-Rob, Brown, and Tracy are the plays. Thank you so much, Frank, for the support. Omar F., what is going on? Thank you so much, Omar, always coming in, supporting your boy. It is so, so greatly appreciated. I have Tank and Etienne with both trending to play. So which one do I use? Or can I play them both and bench either Keenan or Parker? Oh, man, we're in a tough spot here, Wolf, for you, Omar. If I had to pick one of them, I'd play Tank. You coming off the hot games, looking solid. Etienne has not been in the lineup. Obviously, Peterson's comments from a couple of weeks ago where he said, I don't believe in starters losing their jobs to injuries. That worries you. Etienne comes in, the main guy. He's just been so bad. Like, what has Etienne done that makes you want to use him? Is kind of how I feel. Full PPR, like he is more likely to catch the passes. We know Tank Bigsby has been a stone cold zero in that sense. So now I'm just like, because the way I think this game goes, it's like, okay, there's no way I play them both because it's a game flow thing. And Bigsby is certainly better in situations where they don't get completely blown out. And three catches on the year, though, is just like, oh, God. You're getting no PPR boost. When the game flow is not right for him, he kind of disappears, and Etienne becomes more of the pass catcher. And I think Philly just blows the doors off of him. So I would lean Etienne because you might get a couple dink and dunk passes. The full PPR helps you out there. I would not play both. I would say Keenan Allen over Parker Washington for sure. We have Brian Thomas. If Brian Thomas wasn't playing, this would be trickier. But I think Thomas and Ingram are more than capable of taking nearly every target today. And Parker might do okay, but he becomes far less appetizing with those guys in. Keenan, I mean, not that he's like overly appetizing. I'm not sprinting to play Keenan Allen by any means, but Cardinals not a good not a good defense, so good matchup overall. And we've seen Keenan spike this year. Just a couple of weeks ago we had him go for 21. So yeah, it's 7 targets last week too. It didn't end up materializing, but that was second on the team. So I liked going Keenan Allen and Travis Etienne. I don't like going them, but of what you have, I don't play both guys. And because it's full PPR, I play Etienne over Tank, and I play Keenan Allen as my other one, Omar. Best of luck. Tough situation to sift through. Thank you so much for these super chats. Always, Omar. So generous, so appreciated. All right, Bucky Irving. Or to Brandon, not Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving, live fan of the show. Brandon LaBelle asking, Bucky Irving or Travis Etienne as running back 2.5 PPR? Good one as well. I would say, I got to go Bucky Irving because it's half PPR. It's not Etienne's first game back. What is he fully healthy? How much does he play? I don't want a full PPR. I just recommended him, but like Bucky Irving's been rock solid. I know it's an annoying committee. They keep saying it's a 3-headed situation, and Tucker's great. I really do like Sean Tucker, but the last couple of weeks he has barely mixed in. And we've got Bucky going 19, 17, and 15. That's full PPR, but I don't think it's been overly boosted by 18, 15, and 12 across his last 3 games. It's a tough matchup against the Chiefs, the toughest possible matchup. But Etienne, he's dreaming of those numbers. He hasn't even come close to those, and he's been hurt. Like, what if he's not fully healthy? So yeah, I'm going Travis Etienne there, Brand. I'm going Travis Etienne on the bench, putting Bucky Irving in there, half PPR. It only helps Bucky. Great touchdown scorer. So yeah, I'm going Bucky Irving there. Thank you so much, Brandon, for the super chat. And NC Firearms coming out with a very generous $10 super chat. Thank you so much, NC Firearms. It is so greatly appreciated. Kincaid or Laporta? I got to lean Laporta. The first game without JMO, what does he do? He comes out and has his best game of the season. I know he's been a dud for a lot of the year, Sam Laporta, but I love to see those 6 targets. I love to see the touchdown. And we've got a touchdown in 2 out of the last 3 weeks for Laporta. We're talking about the guy that was drafted as often as the tight end 1 in fantasy football. What has Kincaid done to deserve consideration ahead of him? He had a touchdown last week, sure, I get that. But, like, his season highs are 12 and 11. And so we have 2 performances from Sam Laporta that are better than his season highs, and both of them came last 3 weeks. And now we have JMO out yet again. So I'm going to go Laporta in that shootout-style atmosphere over Kincaid. And then Laporta or Hockenson, I would go Laporta there as well. Let's see what we got in Hockenson. I'm very excited. But let's see what we got before we use him if we have a good enough option. And, yeah, he's a good enough option, Laporta, for sure. Ryan McLeod, thank you so much for the super chat, Ryan. And thank you again, NC Firearms. You support us every single week. A $10 super chat from the top rope. Like, you're the man. Thank you so, so much. Let's get it. Let's eat. And thank you again so much for your support, NC Firearms, each and every week, but especially, I mean, that is so generous of you. Thank you again. Ryan McLeod saying, pick 2 to start PPR. Brian Thomas Jr., Coker, or Tillman. I would go. I love Coker. Don't get me wrong. Holy Cross boy, Cokehead through and through. I love that. That's the new name for Coker fans, and I love that he likes it too. I don't know if you guys have seen that clip where they ask him like, "What are your thoughts on the new hive, the new fans that you have? Do you know what it is?" He's like, "Yep." And he's like, "I don't think it's very appropriate, and I really like it." And say, "Okay, Coker, fire him up. My lineup needs a line of Coke here, baby." It's wild. But he's distantly behind Thomas and Tillman for me. As much as I like him, as much as I want to roll out a Holy Cross boy, I have to in my league. I certainly don't have Brian Thomas or Tillman. I am firing those two up. It's a no-brainer for me. Maybe Coker, I hope he makes it a conversation in future weeks. But for right now, yeah, I mean, you're rolling Tillman in a full PPR. He's got, 18 and 29. Last two, Brian Thomas is a top 10 wide receiver for me. In a matchup, they're going to be chasing points. Absolutely. We're going Thomas. We're going Tillman for those ones. Thank you so much, Ryan, for the super chat. And Corey coming in with a super chat. Thank you so much. Lineup help, 12-team PPR, 2 receivers, 2 QBs, 1 QB, 1 tight end, 1 flex. Oh, man. You super chatted, so Casey, I'm going to work through this for you because I really appreciate your support. I feel like we probably could have limited this one to like a few actual decisions. But let's find out. Let's dive in, huh? So 1 quarterback between Murray and Cousins. I'm going to fire up Murray. Again, it's a tough matchup against Chicago. I know that. Am I going to go locked in Murray there? I don't know. I say it, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, so 3 out of the last 4 have been over 21 points. I like that. But Chicago really has been limiting. And, like, Dallas down their top 2 corners, Kirko coming off a 29-point day. The risk with Cousins, which I wonder if it's mitigated or not this week, is if they don't get pushed, if they have no reason to just sit back and run, they're going to sit back and run. That's the new Zach Robinson way. I do think Dallas is capable of pushing them. They're down their top 2 corners as well, Dallas, so we know Cousins will be chucking early. I'm going to go Cousins. I'm switching it up. I'm going Cousins here, just slightly over Kyler Murray. This is an example. Bijan, you don't have a tough running back decision here. You have Bijan. This running back came down to Irving versus Chase Brown, but you're going Bijan and Chase Brown. So the running back one is easy. Bijan, Chase Brown. The 2 receivers are going to be. I'm locking in Kupp again, like Kupp versus Sutton. Come on, again, Corey, you super chatty. I'm just giving you a hard time, but it is always helpful when people learn how to trim the questions a little bit. But hey, you super chatted, so thank you again so much. So we're going Cousins, we're going Bijan and Chase Brown, no brainers over Irving. For wide receivers, we're locking Kupp and Terry. That's also no brainers. So then the flexes, this really came down to a flex question and the quarterback question at the end of the day. So tight end, okay, I get it because like Bowers and McBride's like, okay, you got 2 of the top tight ends in the league. Do one of them become a flex? So you have a very interesting team here. I would go gun to my head. I'm going Bowers still at tight end since he's really bad on defense, including against tight ends for back-to-back years. They've been 2 of the top matchups for tight ends. So my flex, it comes down to Irving, Mooney, Sutton, or McBride. Yeah, I like your kicker and your defense. Lock them up. I feel like I'm going double tight end here between Mooney, Sutton, and McBride. Irving I like, but not enough to consider with those guys. The receivers are in great spots, but McBride, they play Chicago, what I heard, cover 3 at like one of the highest rates, and McBride has been like a 40% target per route run and that type of coverage shell. And so it's like the right matchup for him. He's coming off, his highest volume day of the year, 11 targets, 9 catches, 124. Hasn't still found the end zone. That seems likely to shift at some point. So I'm going double tight end here. I'm going Cousins, and then I'm going Bijan, Chase Brown, Kupp, and Terry. That's how I'd work that. Very good team, solid roster there. Corey Jones. I feel like you probably could have limited that question to a flex decision. But hey, you support your boy, and I'm sorry for criticizing you as much as I am. It's a great roster, so well done there, Corey. And that's how I would set that one. Thank you so much for the support. My man Charlie coming in with a super chat. Thank you so much, Charlie. Great to see you as always at every stream. Need a flex. Waddle, Worthy, Leggett, and Bucky. PPR. Alrighty, we got interesting options overall. Oh man, Charlie, they're all kind of in the same tier for me. I probably am going to go Worthy here. The Tampa Bay matchup is just so ripe. The most points, second most points to quarterbacks, top 3 to wide receivers, shootout after shootout game. Their secondary is absolutely abysmal. So I do think Worthy is in a solid spot this week. I know it's inconsistent, so he's like kind of risky. The risky of this, 4 points 2 weeks ago, 12 points last week. It is a full PPR. So let me just double check that 5 and 14, 8 targets in back-to-back weeks. You like to see that, the volume coming up. You do worry, does Hopkins get more involved this second week with the team? But the Tampa Bay defense is one that's giving up big plays at one of the highest rates. And I see at least one bomb coming Worthy's way. So to me, he's probably the play. Bucky's close, and that's what's nice about this one is like, if you're dominating, you've got a 30-point edge, you just want like a guaranteed 8 to 10, then you slap in Bucky on Monday night, and he plays ahead of Worthy for you. But in most situations, I think Worthy's the right play. Excited to see what Leggett does, but it's Bryce Young at quarterback, so that automatically is like, no thanks. And then Waddle is another one of those ones where like Jonnu Smith is seeing the same type of usage right now. Etienne is really limited that. Could Waddle break out? Absolutely, but he's the bench till he earns it type of situation for me. The locker room needs to see that. Whereas Worthy, yeah, he's gotten his 8 targets, and on that 5-point day, he like barely missed a big touchdown. So I feel pretty good about lighting up Worthy this week. Thank you, Charlie, as always, for your super chats. Levi, consistently week in and week out, also sending the super chats to your boy. You guys are so generous and so kind, and it is so greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. PPR and bonus points for 40-plus throws, catches, and runs. Okay, so the big play bonus in here. Good context to that. Need one flex. Ingram, Tolbert, Coker, same format still. Burrow over Flacco and Stafford with no Higgins. Ooh, some fun questions here. I still go Burrow. I know the lack of Higgins is a big hit. And last week didn't look so great without him, but we're talking the Raiders here. This is a doormat of a defense. But Jamar Chase getting a couple 40-yard bombs. I think we can all picture that one against the Raiders. So I like going Burrow. The bigger risk there is like they get up early. They're just bleeding clock. He doesn't need to sling it. But like their defense is so bad that I don't know that we ever get them like fully up huge. So I'm going Burrow over those guys. I do really like Flacco and Stafford. There's no issue with them. But I got to go Burrow. He's your QB1. He's been your guy. He hasn't really deserved to be benched quite yet. 35, 20, 15, 14. I guess the past 2 weeks have been a little underwhelming, but I think Burrow is the play here. In terms of the flex, I know it doesn't fit the big play bonus as much, but it does fit the PPR, and that's Evan Ingram. When Christian Kirk is out, he just becomes a magnet. The splits, I wish I should have wrote down the splits, but how drastic they are. It is absolutely insane how much more Evan Ingram averages without Christian Kirk. It's like nearly 20 points per game, about 10 targets per game. He becomes a vacuum. Now, this was, of course, before Brian Thomas was there. But even with Kirk in the lineup since returning, we've had Evan Ingram just soaking up the looks week in and week out. 10 targets not too long ago. He's got 18, 9, and 14 PPR points since returning. Light it up. That's great. Also only 5,300 on DraftKings. So a big fan of him. But I'm going Burrow, and I'm going Ingram, Levi. I know Ingram's unlikely to hit that bonus point for you. But I still think Ingram with the PPR, we're just going to see 12 targets today at minimum. William G. Thank you so much for the super chat, Willie. I know you consistently show up for your boy here. Start Dak or Maye, Gesicki or Kincaid. Close week. Alrighty, I am gonna go. I love Drake May's fantasy upside. He's made of the fantasy goodness there with the rushing upside. 22-21, and then had like 12 points on a drive. against the Jets. Oh, man, in Tennessee, not a great defense. You saw them put up 52 points, get pasted on them. I feel like I gotta still go. Do I have to go Dak, though? I don't know. Dak's got – so Drake May has – Dak has one 30-point day. And otherwise, Drake May has outscored Dak in all other of Dak's weeks, and he's had 8 games, and Drake May's only had 2. I'm going to go Drake May here. I know it's crazy, but I've seen no reason. Dak is playing horrible. He's allowing CD to do okay, but I don't. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's too risky. I just double checked because I'm like, let me see what the rankings say. I like to go off the gut during the live stream, but I had Drake May 21 and Dak 22. I'm also minus 12 ECR on Dak, so I mean he's a top 10 quarterback in most rankings. I'm definitely against the grain there, William. But I'm going Drake May. He's just been a fantasy juggernaut when he's out there. And then we got thank you so much, William, for that. And I did not want to miss your tight end question. I am going to go Kincaid over Gesicki. Now, I mean, last week we saw it. No T. Higgins, and they talked pregame that Mike Gesicki going to need to get more involved, and we saw it. 7 catches, 79 yards, 73, I believe it was actually. 8 targets, though. It definitely stepped into a much larger role. They ran a lot more 2 tight end sets. Raiders, obviously, a cream puff. I still think it's Kincaid, though. In Miami, also not a bad matchup here for tight ends. Just caught his touchdown. He also got 7 targets, so I'll take the targets. Man, it is actually weirdly tough. But I like Gesicki is much more likely. He had 8 targets last week than 1, 0, 2, 1. Like it makes sense why he had the 8 targets last week, and it's looking like a similar situation against the Raiders. But you can't never just discount the guy from completely disappearing out of nowhere. And he might pull a Houdini on you this week. Whereas Kincaid, it might not be pretty, it might not be fun, but 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, alternating weeks with 7 or 6 targets. Like you're gonna get something. The new K-Dot baby, you're gonna eat something. It might not be great, but you're gonna eat something. So I'm gonna go May, and I'm gonna go Kincaid there. Thank you so much, Will, for the super chat, William. Manny, thank you so much for your super chat, Manny. So greatly appreciated. Wide receiver 2, Worthy, D-Hop, Waddle. I'm leaning Worthy again for this one. It comes down to which Chiefs receiver do you want to use in a right spot here. Like I've said a few times today, there's going to be a coming out party at some point for D-Hop. I do think he's far more likely to play the Rashee Rice, Juju Smith-Schuster. I find the soft spot. I sit here and I get the ball. It's going to happen. Where better for it to happen than against Tampa Bay? A joke of a defense. So I do like D-Hop to potentially break out this week, but Worthy, at least we've seen 8 targets in back-to-back weeks. We also know Tampa Bay giving up a ton of big plays. So I lean Worthy. I think they connect at least one deep one here. In terms of the tight end, I love Taysom Hill today. No Kendre Miller, no Jamal Williams, no Bub Means, which are all names that you're just probably like, okay, so what? But it actually matters for Taysom Hill, one of the more unique roles, and they get the Carolina Panthers. Like, I wonder what his touchdown prop is today, but I would have no problem hitting a touchdown prop on Taysom Hill. I think he's a great bet to find the end zone at least once, maybe twice. So I love Taysom today. Ertz has been so rock solid, Manny, but rock solid in that, like, you're going to get 8 points and good. I guess 11, 14, and 15 in full PPR. These last few is inflated by the kind of PPR scam, though. But 9, 12, 11, 12, like that's solid. But yeah, I have Taysom Hill quite a few spots higher just because of the pure upside there, Manny. So I'm rolling Worthy and I'm rolling Taysom Hill. You guys are so generous. We're up to 27 super chats on the day. Wolfpack, thank you so much. That is, I think the record's 30, but I mean, in terms of amount, like with the $10 and whatnot, I think we've broken records here. Another week with some electricity here in the Wolf Den. But no, in all seriousness, you guys are so generous. It's so greatly appreciated. I love these 2 hours with you guys every day, no matter what, every week rather. But the fact that you guys are so generous with them, it's unbelievable. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. And record views here, over 1,500 concurrent live viewers. Unbelievable to see. I think that is the highest we've hit this year, maybe all time. if you're here, if you don't have the means to super chat, no worries at all. But a free way to support your boy for the time is a thumbs up, a heart. It really does. That's why we're getting out to so many of you guys. You've been so good. I don't know if we've ever topped 100 likes on a single stream, and there's 1,500 of you out there. So if you could consider hitting that thumbs up button on YouTube, the heart button on Twitter, the retweet, and sharing us out, so greatly appreciated. My man, NC Firearms, your second super chat of the day after a $10 super chat already. So generous. Thank you so, so much. Start 2 out of the 4. Ridley, Myers, Tillman, or Coker. I would lean here. Tillman is my favorite. And see, I hate to do this to you. I would have loved to know the scoring settings. Just because Myers, I really do like Myers, and maybe I just go him anyways. Full PPR, it becomes a pretty clear cut. Like, I'm going Jacoby Myers. Great matchup against NC. Absolute target vacuum. I'm actually way too low in my rankings on Myers. I have him at 33, 9 spots below ECR, and I just have no justification for that. It's beyond just like, oh yeah, since he allows a lot of points to receivers, it's like the schematics they run. Fantasy Points is great about this. One of my favorite sites, but it's just like a funnel to exactly what Myers does well. And he's been right around 40% first read targets since Devontae Adams left, and he's just had tough matchups and still has played quite well in it. I could see Myers having a monster day. So I'm going to go, I was going to say, like, if it's PPR, it's Myers. If it's half, it's Ridley. I just like Myers more. And I love – it's tough to see, like, Mason Rudolph come in and peppered Ridley his first game without Hopkins. Like, I think Ridley's certainly in play. I cut him in a league, and now I'm starting Coker. Probably wish I could have Ridley back in that case. But I think Myers is in a great spot today. So I'm bumping him up at least 6 spots. Man, maybe I'm not quite on the ECR on it, but I mean, over Sutton, over Mooney, probably. I don't know. Yeah. But Tillman's my favorite here still. But I do really like Myers today. Ridley, it's just like, will they need him? They were playing so much catch up that last week, and he was the main guy. So you like to see that. I just 2 really good games on the year and so many duds, so much inconsistency. I mean, 15 targets is 15 targets, though, Wolf. Like, what are you thinking? But I'd rather roll out Tillman, multiple good games in a row. As soon as you trust Ridley is when he kind of bails on you. But again, I cut him, and sometimes you just need to get rid of a player and let everybody else in fantasy enjoy him. Like, it's just a bad player coach fit, So maybe Ridley just couldn't play for me, but he'll play for everybody else. But I like Tillman and Myers here. Great options, all similar. I do think Coker's like a distant fourth, as much as I love my Holy Cross boy there. I would start any of those other 3 above him if I had the option. So go Myers and Tillman, I would say here. NC Firearms. Joe Hill coming in with a second super chat. So generous of you. Doubling it up, man. You are the man. Thank you so, so much for your support. Forgot to ask about QB. I currently have Goff. Weather in GB looks pretty wet and cold. Should I pick up Darnold or Tua? I kind of like Darnold this week. Just slightly, even before the weather concerns. But now the weather concerns do have me thinking about maybe bumping Goff down a little bit more. Yeah, Tua in that 48.5 point over-under, like shootout style game projected by Vegas here. I am leaning Darnold, though. Indianapolis giving up big plays at a top 3 rate in the NFL. Darnold, it's one of those things where it's like he's absolutely killing it in the start of games, and then kind of like craters in the second half. They bleed the clock. But even still, only 1 game below 17 fantasy points on the year, just a rock solid floor. When you have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, you got those type of weapons. And then I like the fact that Joe Flacco might push this team a little bit harder too, to keep slinging the rock. So I am leaning Darnold over them. I don't know who you'd have to drop to pick him up, but I like Darnold the most of these quarterback options. I like God. I mean, that game should shoot out, but I have not seen those latest weather updates. So I am going to bump Goff down just a handful of spots. Because the thing with, man, I think this is his first outside game. And I know that's like, diving into that is, come on, now we're getting, but like the splits of him in a dome versus outside, he's only got like 3 outside matchups all year. And I believe this is the first one. Now it's wet. And that thing mattered. That does weirdly matter, Joe. And I had Darnold higher already, even before the weather note. So yeah, I would roll Darnold there, Joe. Again, $10 and a $5 super chat, Joe. So appreciated. Thank you again so much. Katie Jagier, what's going on, Katie Jigs? Pollard or Brian Thomas Jr. full PPR flex? Great question. Both obviously come in with a little bit of injury concern, and what if they re-aggravate it? So with the risk baked into both already, I got to go Brian Thomas, the higher ceiling, especially in full PPR. I mean, the man is just a baller. And you get a Philly team that's a top 5 matchup for wide receivers. You got a game script that likely means that Thomas and the Jags, they're just going to be slinging it and trying to play catch up. And you got Peterson in the revenge game mode. He's probably going to be uncorking a few more deep shots, a few more trick plays here. So I like Brian Thomas over Pollard there. Just benefits the full PPR. Now, the Pats have been a abysmal run defense. So Pollard's in a good spot too. The positive game flow, no Tajay Spears. There's a lot to like about him. I'm just in love with Brian Thomas. What more could I say? Great player, great matchup, equal risk to both these guys. So yeah, I'm going Brian Thomas. Thank you so much, Katie Jagier, for the support. And B Dizzle with the last super chat as of right now. Justin Herbert or Baker Mayfield? We are going to go Baker Mayfield in this case. Now, I love what I'm seeing with Justin Herbert lately. As we hinted at earlier in the show, 23 pass attempts per game to start the season, the first 3 games. Bye week hits, or the first 4 games rather, 3 games since, 35 pass attempts per game. Really, really solid boost in pass rate over expectation. I'm guessing he's back to fully healthy as part of that. And coming off his season high, 27 points last week, you love to see it. So I am certainly getting more and more into Justin Herbert, but Baker Mayfield, we're talking about the QB2 in fantasy, and I know the weapons have been taking a huge hit. And even with that, yet another last week top 7 performance from the guy. 24 fantasy points. He's been below 20 fantasy points just once all year, and that was against Denver, who lock up nearly every quarterback. I think Liam Cohen's the real deal, the offensive coordinator there. He's calling up a gem week in and week out, and Baker is just playing at a different level. And so, yeah, a game where they're probably going to need points playing Kansas City. The defense just always creates these shootout scripts for them. It's kind of like the Lions, and but Baker's just slinging it even further. So, yeah, 50 pass attempts last week. Come on. Let's light it up. So I'm going Baker, as much as I do like the positive trends here for Justin Herbert, Mr. B Dizzle. That is where I am leaning. All righty. Wolfpack, that is all of the super chats that we have gotten so far. Thank you so much. 27 of them out there supporting your boy financially. It is so greatly appreciated. We now have 1,650 of you. We're an hour in. I haven't even gotten to do the news yet because so many generous super chats out there. Thank you again so much. Let me just quickly rip through this news just in case it changes any of the questions out there. And then we will be on to, I see over 150 questions in the mailbag. Just as a heads up, I will be live till 10 o'clock. So what we do is the 8 to 10 window. So I hope to get to every question. I will do a rapid fire towards the end of that. But ultimately, the only way to guarantee an answer to get ahead of the line is that super chat button. So thank you again so much for those of you that were willing to do that already. And we will get to all those questions in a second. I'm going to rip through this as fast as I humanly possibly can. Jordan Love is in, huge for all the weapons there. Jaden Reed, obviously a must-play. Romeo Dobbs is a huge boost as well. So great to see them. I think that game is going to be a real fun one. Drake Maye is also off concussion protocol. 20 fantasy points in his full games so far, and back-to-back, over 20 fantasy points in both of them. Had 12 points in a drive last week. The guy can run. The guy can sling. I'm not worried about Tennessee at all, so I like Drake Maye this week at top 20 quarterback play. As we talked about, I had a Dak for me this week. Derek Carr off the injury report. He will play as well, the last quarterback note we have. Good news for Alvin Kamara. The dink and dunk machine is back. Should hopefully help Chris Olave, who had 14 targets as well last week. On to running backs. Wolfpack. Tyrone Tracy is off the concussion protocol. He will play. He's fresh off his takeover of the backfield on Monday Night Football, putting up over 140 yards, over 20 fantasy points against the Steelers. Love it. Love what I've seen from this kid. He is a must play, as is Chase Brown, because Zach Moss is doubtful. Chase Brown was already taking over the backfield, but let's give him even more of the snaps here. Gets the Raiders top 2 matchup. Cannot be any better than that. You're firing both those guys up, Tracy and Zach Moss, as top 20 running backs. Tajay Spears is out, but Pollard is in. Great matchup for Pollard. A little riskier with the injuries, but ultimately I have a hard time putting Pollard on the bench. We've gotten some great questions about like Pollard versus BTJ. Yeah, sure, I will go Pollard on the bench there. I will go BTJ over Pollard, but he's a top 20 running back for me, so I would be getting him in the vast majority of my lineups. Brian Robinson is playing today against the Giants. Been a very, very sturdy, solid. You're getting your 12 to 15. Not a huge ceiling, but a locked-in running back too that you can trust. And then the last 2 or 3 notes here, Travis Etienne is in, which just kind of ruins this backfield for fantasy, in my opinion. Tank Bigsby is also playing, but it's really game flow. If they're up, Bigsby will get some work. If not, Travis Etienne probably playing the comeback mode, dink and dunk type of guy. I don't want to play either of them. I think they're going to be behind against the Eagles, which makes Bigsby risky already, but especially that much more risky with Travis Etienne in. And then Zeke Elliott, he's going to be inactive today. Dalvin Cook elevated here, but good news for Rico Dowdle. You can trust him a little bit more. Don't love Dowdle. Don't love the Cowboys running game, but ultimately as the clear-cut, 70% type of guy, Dowdle's definitely in a top 25 running back situation this week. Jamal Williams and Kendre Miller are doubtful. Miller's actually on the IR, so we won't see him for a while. If anybody was stashing him, see you later. But Williams doubtful, and what does that do for us fantasy owners? Doesn't impact our running back rankings. It impacts our tight end rankings, of course. Taysom Hill shooting up in the rankings. Let us know if you have a tight end question. He's still out there in your 70% of leagues. I think Taysom Hill, a very, very viable streamer today. Even in your flex, doesn't have to be as just your tight end. I think he is a great bet to find the end zone against the Carolina Panthers, especially with all these other guys out. And that wraps up our running back news. So we move on to wide receivers, just double checking. No super chats, so we will continue plowing forward with the news. Puka Nacua is expected to play. There was rumblings and concern because he left Thursday's practice with a knee issue, the same knee that had sidelined him. So yeah, that is obviously risky and annoying, but all the reports are he's good to go. It's nothing major, nothing considered serious, and that he is fine. And last game out, 9 targets, 7 catches, over 100 yards. It's Puka. You play him. It's worrisome. It's definitely a concern that he's got something flaring up right now, but I think you still got to play the guy. We had a Devonta Smith scare. He didn't practice on Friday out of nowhere, but he's good to go. He gets the Jags. He's a top 15 wide receiver. You're locking him on in. DK Metcalf is out, but they are optimistic he will be ready to return after the bye week next week. So ultimately, a small bump up for JSN, for Tyler Lockett. I don't love either of these guys, but it's definitely a much easier matchup than we had last week against the Bills. So maybe we finally get JSN to do something. T. Higgins is unexpected to play, doubtful for week 9, probably already officially ruled out at this point. Shower Jamar Chase. We do also get a little bit of a bump up there for Mike Gesicki, weirdly. But yeah, if you're looking for a desperation tight end streamer, not bad. Brian Thomas was supposed to be a game time decision, and the game time decision is he's in. And he's in my top 10 wide receivers moving forward with no Christian Kirk, an absolute beast of a player. I love Brian Thomas. I love the matchup against Philly, and they're going to need to be chasing points all day. I am playing Brian Thomas. Xavier Legette is questionable, which leads me to Mr. Jalen Coker. Holy Cross boy. I can't go on as long of a rant as I wanted to about him because we have so many questions. But if you're desperate for a wide receiver or flex Hail Mary dart, I do prefer Taysom Hill. But, man, I am happy to fire up a little bit of Coke, a line of Coker. Legette's going to play, so he's also in play too. But we are talking about Bryce Young's weapons here, which does limit the appeal for both of them. But no Deontay Johnson now traded away, of course. Adam Thielen is inactive and potentially getting traded away. I wanted to mention this one too because love stashing Adam Thielen for right now. I have an article on the website, the 3 guys you should be stashing ahead of the Tuesday trade deadline. We're going to definitely see some action, and it's just a matter of who could get some huge value boosts and get ahead of it so you don't have to bid your precious fab or waiver claims on it. And Adam Thielen is absolutely one of them. He's probably the top one because you can actually put him into your IR spot and let him sit there, especially if you don't have it already used. So I love adding Adam Thielen. What if he goes to the Bucks, for example? I love adding Darius Slayton. I love adding Khalil Herbert. If you want more details on those guys, check out rotostreetjournal.com. Not only will you find my rankings, you'll find tons of other great content from all our great writers, including that article I wrote yesterday on the top guys to stash ahead of the trade deadline. And on that note, Mike Williams is expected to get moved here. Now, you probably can't stash him. That's why I included him as an honorable mention. But in most leagues, because he played on Thursday night, if you don't already have him, I did tweet out before Thursday, stash this guy now. So if you follow me at RotoStreetWolf, you might have already seen that and have him sitting waiting on the bench. Because if he goes like the Chargers, for example, he could be right back into he was a top 15 receiver before he went down last year. Could be right back into that type of role. But the rumors are the Steelers are the most interested in him. That would be kind of ugly. The moon ball from Russ are obviously working for Pickens, but low volume, competing with Pickens. Don't love it. I would love to see him go to the Chargers. But if you can stash him, he would be worth stashing. And speaking of the Chargers, Quentin Johnston's off the injury report. So if they don't make a move, another one that, maybe you stash him ahead to see what happens here at the deadline. Juju Smith-Schuster out for the week. Maybe that opens things up for DeAndre Hopkins, who is rumored to be getting more involved this week. Intrigued for sure, because the matchup is – you couldn't ask for a better spot than Tampa Bay, a non-existent secondary. And I think that game could really shoot out on Monday Night Football. It's still worrisome to see Hopkins had to get worked along so slowly in that first week. But ultimately, this could be the coming out party. So it depends what your options are. But I've got a few questions on Hopkins. I know I've gone the other way in most of them, but Downs versus Hopkins, they've been pretty great options compared to him. If it's Coker versus Hopkins, let's go D-Hop, On the other side of that, we have Sterling Shepard not practicing, and that could mean more slot snaps for our good friend Jalen McMillan. I'd love to see him get more of that better fitting role for him. So that could be intriguing, no doubt about it. We did, before we move on to our tight end news and then on to the rest of the mailbag, Demo hitting us with a super chat. Thank you so much, Demo, for supporting your boy. Need one flex, JSN, Myers, JK, or Coleman. A lot of very similar same tier options here, Demo. But the more I've talked about Myers today, the better I feel about him. JK, nice, safe. You're going to get 20 carries, but he already seems to be kind of sputtering, running out a little bit of a gas there. Not a great matchup against Cleveland. All these receivers are very intriguing this week. There's no doubt about it. But to me, Myers probably getting 10 targets, 40% of the first read targets since Adams got moved. And he's just had really bad matchups, and he's still been playing pretty good. So, I think we've been at the floor for Myers, and maybe this Bengals matchup is a chance to see the ceiling. So I really like Myers today. I think he's a great spot, great person to play. And we have Luis Perez. Thank you so much for the super chat as well. Downs or Dell rest of season? I go Downs 10 out of 10 times there. The reports are that Flacco, this is not just a one-week thing, that this is how they plan to go moving forward. And, of course, at a certain point, they get knocked out of playoff contention. There's obviously risk that they want to see what they have in Anthony Richardson. And once Richardson's in, you can't trust Downs. It's impossible. But with Flacco, Downs has 19.2 fantasy points per game, would be the wide receiver 6 ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown, ahead of Malik Neighbors. It's crazy how good Downs has been with Flacco, so I lean that way. For the defenses, I'm going to go Denver. On the bench, I'm going to go Philly defense over them. I don't like the Baltimore matchup. I think Denver is good of a defense as they've been for fantasy. They haven't really been tested. Not like this. This is the best offense in the league. I worry for Denver's defense today. I love Philly to get after Trevor Lawrence. And then Pearsall worth a stash? Absolutely. We saw him last week manufacture about 70 yards, including a 39-yard rush. No Ayuk moving forward. Of course, CMC's ideally coming back in week 10. You got Debo hopefully getting healthy with the bye. You got Kittle. So, just kind of Ayuk wasn't even valuable as with all these weapons around him. Do we really expect Pearsall to take off that much? And then what if Juwan Jennings? So I would say this, Lewis, there's probably better stashes out there that, I think he's absolutely worth stash. A first round talent, a luxury pick by Kyle Shanahan. They clearly love the guy, and he's looked good on his limited work. But, is there somebody you can stash today that could gain some value ahead of time? A Jalen Coker. Perhaps one of these running backs, a Blake Corum, one of those handcuffed backs that if something happens to the starter, you're shooting up in value. So, yeah, I don't mind the stash by any means. I think there's certainly value and validity to it, but I think there's also, you're not changing any value today. for Ricky Pearsall. And I kind of want to put guys on my bench that I know could like gain in some value today based on what happens. So, the quorums, those type of stashes. Let me know if there's anybody you're looking at. But that's where I lean. And thank you so much, guys, for those continued super chats. It is so greatly appreciated. In terms of tight end news, just a couple quick notes. Mike McDonald says it's going to be some time before Noah Fant returns. There's really no one more usable there, but just probably a little more volume there coming to JSN, coming to Lockett. I'm coming around to those guys being okay plays today. Rams secondary is not good. It's kind of now or never. Like if it doesn't happen for JSN today, when is it going to ever happen? TJ Hockenson off the injury report will play, and he's number 12 in my tight end rankings. Could be in your lineups. Talk about the tight end 2 in points per game last year. And Sam Darnold, I think he's going to be loving that underneath threat today. Another reason to love him, but I know we had a super chat earlier about him versus Goff, and another reason to go him is that nice stabilizing force. And then Dallas Goedert out again. Truly desperation streamer would be Grant Calcaterra. Don't love it. DraftKings, he's cheap, but there's also Taysom Hill's not that much more expensive. If you need a tight end play, you should be streaming Taysom Hill. And then we have Denzel Ward off the injury report. That does obviously lessen the matchup for the Chargers, but I don't think he shadows Ladd. They move him around so much. More of a slot guy anyways. So I'm still firing up Ladd with confidence this week. And then Jeremiah, their linebackers on injury reserve as well. There's probably more defensive notes, but we got to get to your questions. So let's plow on forward, Wolfpack. We did have 2 more super chats in between the wrap-up of the news there. Tank Bigsby or Justice Hill. Jacob is down bad. Indeed you are, sir. I would probably roll with Tank Bigsby at this point. Obviously the Justice Hill one comes down to game flow, and in the right situations, we've seen him get targeted 8 to 10 times. But now that they have Deion, they have so many mouths there. And if the game flow is not right, we're not even going to seem to sniff the field. Whereas Bigsby, also very game flow dependent. And, it's one of those things where I see both of these guys as game flow dependent running backs, and neither game flow is working in the way they typically do for them. Justice Hill might have actually the better shot at truly getting the Broncos come out early and now Justice Hill's involved as a pass catcher. But Bigsby, when you're going this low, I don't mean to insult you, Jacob. I'm sorry if I am. But when you have to roll around in the mud, you're aware you're down bad. You kind of just go for the touchdown or bust. And Bigsby's by far the better bet to score the touchdown. I think that's a spot where he will continue to keep his role even with Etienne back. Tough matchup again against Philly, but yeah, I got to go Tank Bigsby. I don't love it. I do not love it at all today, but I'm looking at who else could you even possibly get off the waiver wires to stream, and there's really not much. So yeah, I'm going to go Bigsby over Hill. I don't love it, but yeah, you are down bad. There's no doubt about it. Harv Danger, 7. Thank you so much, Jacob, and thank you so much, Harv Danger, for the super chat. We have now officially hit 31 super chats, the most we've ever reached on a stream. You guys are legends. Such a generous day. So greatly appreciated. Keeping these lights on over here at the Roto Street Journal. Maybe I will be able to afford this house that I'm buying after all. Harv Danger, half PPR receiver. Need to have Flowers, Harrison, Shakir, Tillman, QB have Bo Nix or Tua. I would lean Harrison, and this is a really tough one, Harv. I kind of like Tillman over. I think Harrison's the play. Tough matchup, so he's risky. You got a lot of safe guys. I think Tillman's going to do his thing each and every week moving forward. Shakir, you're going to get the volume each and every week. Flowers worries me because Deontay's first game with the team, similar role, bad Denver matchup. Very game flow dependent. What if he doesn't get the right game script this week? I have him ahead of Tillman in my rankings, and I do not believe that at all. I think in most situations I would be going Harrison and Tillman for this one. That's just I wish I had more analytics for you to help out make a decision. It's more so I think the Chargers defense hasn't really been tested. Are the Browns the right team to test them? It wouldn't seem so on paper, but Jameis Browns, hell yeah, they are. So I like him. Half PPR is a little different for Khalil Shakir. Still solid, still valuable, but does lose a little luster in that sense. I don't know if there's official word yet on Amari Cooper. That was the one other receiver note we're kind of waiting on to see if that questionable play is still in. I'm going to go Tillman, and I'm going to go Marv Harrison would be how I would play this one myself. Recognizing that both those guys have a little more risk. Like Shakir is going to get you 10, has the upside to get you to 15-ish, but I feel like he's pretty capped there, whereas like Harrison and Tillman have the upside for 20. Flowers is weirdly like just the Denver matchup, the Deontay arrival, the game flow dependency. Weirdly, just don't like him. I like all these guys actually a little bit more than him. So I adjusted my rankings. I will be publishing that momentarily. Harv Danger, thanks for helping me work through that. And then, sorry, I see you have a quarterback question in there. Harv, Bo Nix or Tua? I would go Bo Nix. Best possible matchup against Baltimore, giving up the second most points to QBs. Only the Jags have been more generous, the most passing yards. But then I'm like, okay. But Tua against Buffalo, shootout style game. But no, I mean, Bo Nix coming off in his last 4 games, 23, 22, 14, and 30. So like 3 of them have been 20 plus. And the man is running more than ever. 61 and 75 yards rushing in 2 of his last 3 games. I know last week we didn't have the Konami upside, and he still threw for 30 fantasy points with the QB2 in Baltimore. Talk about needing to get pushed, needing to unlock it. Bo Nix is a great play this week. I'm changing the rankings there as well, Harv. Help me work through the rankings here. I really, really appreciate it, Harv. So yeah, I'm gonna go Tillman, Harrison, and I'm gonna go Bo Nix over Tua, and I'm gonna change the old rankings here to reflect that. Close though, 13 and 14 QB, but very close. My man Bulldog. Good morning, Wolf. I'm still torn on this one. Would you start both Chase Brown and Tracy over either of Njoku or Otten? 2 flex and 1 tight end. Thank you so much, Bulldog. Always here, and then also often super chatting your boy as well. I would go. I see why you're torn. That is really, really tough. I would probably play the 2 running backs. I don't know which running backs you have above those guys, that they're only your flexes. But, yeah, I would go both of them. Chase Brown, no Zach Moss against the Raiders. Like, what gets better than that? Nothing. And then Tracy coming off a 22-point fantasy point day against the Steelers. If he can run for 140 against the Steelers, who can't he do it against? And Washington's a better defense than they were to start the year, but not anything scary either. So, yeah, I'm going Chase Brown. I'm going Tracy. I think both those guys are great plays today. For the tight end, I'm going to go Otten over Njoku. I do love both tight ends. I totally see wanting to flex one of them, but the 2 running backs are definitely too valuable to me. So, Bulldog, great question. Love these options. I would be going Chase Brown, Tyrone Tracy, and Cade Otten. I'd be benching Njoku. I would also maybe start tossing out some offers. I have Njoku and Kraft, and I'm running into some resistance. Like, nobody really seems to want a tight end. Everybody's okay excepting Dalton Kincaid. Yay, I'll get my 5 points and be happy. I don't know why, but it seems very hard to move a tight end this year, even though it's such a bad position. Like, I have 2 good ones, 2 guys that give your lineup way more upside, and nobody seems to want to nibble. So yeah, see if you can move one. Maybe you can find the right owner in your league. But for now, I play in the 2 running backs in Otten. And then Burrow or Tua, I'm going to go Joe Burrow there. I know the T. Higgins drop off. It hurt last week. We got the Raiders. This is a no-brainer here. And then Fusion V, PPR, Dak, Cousins, or Stafford. I am leaning Cousins here. Both starting corners out for Dallas today. Stafford very close second to me. Dak is I'm not in on Dak right now. He's just a nothing this year. He's had 1 really good day. The rest have been very subpar. Only 1 game above 20 points on the year. And now Cousins isn't much better. He's got only 2, and both of them were against Tampa Bay. So that's risky, but this defense is bad, and I think Cousins will put up his points. Stafford's a pretty close second, though. So if you really didn't love Cousins today, I would lean that one. We are up to 35 super chats, guys. You guys are so generous. We're almost at the 2-hour, the 10 o'clock cutoff. So this is incredible. You guys are so kind and generous. We will go right into the rapid fire as soon as I wrap up these super chats. But again, you guys are too generous. And so I'm going to have to keep going because you're the best. Thank you so much, Stephen Caldwell, Fusion V, everybody super chatting here. Pick one. Palmer. Oh, man. In the mud, it doesn't even begin to describe how down bad this is, Steven. I would lean. So you got. I mean, you're in the mud, but like the funny thing is you got a story for both these guys. Westbrook Akini has caught a touchdown in I think it's 3 straight weeks now, and maybe he keeps that streak alive. I don't know. Whereas Palmer didn't have a horrible day a couple weeks ago. 4 for 72. That's not horrible. I would say, okay, if you're in this mud, is Jalen Coker gone? I'm guessing probably he's gone if you're this deep in the garbage. So if Coker's there, you have to go Coker above these guys. But if not, yeah, I think I would go Palmer myself. Just the improved pass rate over expectation by this team. 35 pass attempts for Herbert compared to 23 to start the year. He's on average 35 these last 3 games since the bye, compared to on average right around 23 was the start of the year. So very ugly there. And a nice improvement is what I'm getting at. So I do like Palmer and the improved thing. It's really touchdown or bust for Westbrook, and if he gets it, great. But that's risky. I'll toss out a couple names that I like probably a little more than Palmer. Again, Jalen Coker's the main one. What about Trey Tucker? Michael Wilson's probably gone. I was gonna say Trey Franklin, but no. It's gonna. Yeah, I mean, he's not a horrible option, Palmer. Noah Brown maybe, but I'd probably rather still have Palmer. So I'll say Palmer, unless you got to stab at Jalen Coker. I would light that up. I would rip the line instead with him. Maybe Andre Joshevich is still kind of sitting out there, waiting to be scooped. I know he did nothing last week. And Jermaine Burton, like that gives you at least a little bit long-term upside. And then, we had that 41-yard catch. Like, what if he just takes over for Andre as the third guy? He could. But if you're in this mud, these are your 2 guys. That's who you're looking at. Then, yeah, I would lean with Palmer over Westbrook Akini. In the mud is absolutely right, though, for that one. And Anthony, thank you so much for your super chat. You guys, again, so generous today, and it's so greatly appreciated. Start 2. Mooney, Shakir, Pittman, Jr., Pop Douglas. So I would cross Pop Douglas off this list. I feel like he's got it. Like, maybe he does something this week. I know Maye has unlocked a little bit of upside for him. He's not. He's about 30 spots away from the Mooney, Shakir, Pittman guys, who are all in the same tier for me. I like all those guys. I have Shakir the highest, especially in full PPR, Anthony. Especially if Amari Cooper sits. But even if not, I still really do like Shakir this week. And then I would likely Mooney versus Pittman's tough because with Flacco in, like this offense is night and day, the difference. So I am going to go Pittman. Oh, man. Mooney gets great volume too, but my gut is telling me Michael Pittman today. So I'm going to go Shakir and Pittman. I just adjusted the rankings to show for that. Number 1 in terms of points allowed to wide receivers are the Vikings. In particular, they struggled like against the big body, the mold of Pittman. And I know Downs is more of the guy for Flacco, but like Pittman, wasn't long ago last year where he was getting 170 targets. He was the man. He certainly has that in his range of outcomes. Whereas Mooney, another great play against Dallas, but like, what if they get up big early? What if he's not part of them getting up big and then they just bleed the clock? That's what they do. And so that's very risk. That could be the big risk there for Mooney. So I'm going to go Shakir, and I am going to go Pittman for the wide receiver part of that. And in the flex, Bigsby or Chestnut, or use one of the wide receivers. I am going to go that's where you go the wide receivers. So I wish I saw that part earlier, Anthony, because I could have just said go the 3 receivers: Pittman, Mooney, Shakir. I would go any of those guys over the running backs you have, especially in full PPR. Makes it nice and easy. Like those 3 are well ahead of the other options you are considering. There's no doubt about it. Eclipse Gaming coming in with a super chat as well. Again, record-setting day. You guys are so greatly generous, and it's so greatly appreciated from you guys today. Do you think I should start Jacoby Myers, Cedric Tillman, Rashad White, or Cortland Sutton? A lot of intriguing options here. I boil this one down to Tillman versus Myers. I love all these guys. They're all, again, in the same flex tier. So that makes this really tough, Eclipse. But for me, Tillman, especially full PPR, half PPR, but 19 and 29 full PPR points back-to-back weeks. Jameis is just slinging the rock. It wasn't long ago that Jameis was throwing 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, but those interceptions don't matter for your wide receiver so much. And ultimately, we saw Mike Evans and Chris Godwin finish in the top 3 in fantasy points per game that year. Like, Jameis can sling, and he will sling, and he loves Tillman. He likes Elijah Moore a lot too, but Tillman is the big body guy that's really getting down the field, like the Evans type that is just playing very, very well with him. So I think Tillman is the play. I love that Myers is seeing a 40% first read with no Adams. I love the matchup against the Raiders. Like, all wheels up for Myers. I just like Tillman more. I would rank these Tillman, then Myers, then probably Sutton, then Rashad White. All great options, though. Eclipse Gaming. Thank you so much. And then we have Eric coming in. Thank you again, guys, so much for the super chats. Thank you, Eric. Start 2. Flowers, Olave, Coker, Tolbert, Bateman. For me, it's pretty easy. Like, Olave is well ahead of the vast majority of this group, as is. I know I was kind of dumping on Flowers a little bit. I worry about the role with the game flow dependency. I worry about what Deontay Johnson's going to bring to the table, where they're both kind of similar, much better dink and dunkers. But what if that does unlock a little more vertical tree for Flowers, who can certainly burn and can get deep down the field? We saw it at Boston College of all places. And meanwhile, like Coker, Tolbert, Bateman, they're all okay, like dart throws when you need to throw them. But when you have Olave and Flowers are both top 24 wide receivers, you don't have to throw the darts. It can be fun. It can be tempting. Let's throw a dart today. You don't need to, though. You got Flowers and Olave. And if you had to bench one, it would be Flowers for maybe Coker. But I like going Flowers and Olave there. Play it with the guys that have been solid all year, rather than the temptation of the dart throws there. Awesome. Well, thank you guys again so much for your super chats. Again, a record-setting 37 of them today. So greatly appreciated. So generous of you. I am going to wrap up with a rapid fire here. One thing we're going to do too is, I love you, Krana. Awesome stuff. We're going to start limiting it to 3 questions because, I'm going to do the first 3 I get from everybody, just to try to get to as many people as I can. So we're at 1950. Maybe we can push over in this last 15-minute rapid fire here, potentially push over the edge and get to 2,000, perhaps. A thumbs up button, a heart button on Twitter, thumbs up on YouTube, a like, a share, a retweet is so greatly appreciated. Thank you again, the 37 super chats. You guys are so kind, so generous. Rapid fire time starts now. I would go BTJ over Waddle pretty clearly. Kron, I will not count this as one he wants because I always love your food questions. I love Oreo double stuffs. There's a salted caramel cookie that's local around here, though. That is the king of the shop. Pick 2, PPR, Tolbert, Pop, Douglas, Coleman. I would go Tolbert and Coleman. I just don't love Pop Douglas, even as a Pats fan. And PPR is a little bit different. But Coleman's the best option here, even with Shakir starting. And then I would go Tolbert myself. And then I'm going to go Ertz over Gesicki. Very close, though. MHJ or Downs. For Krana, I would go Downs. Love it in full PPR. And then I would go Myers over DJ Moore. And then Krana, pick 2 PPR, BTR, Reed, JSN, or Downs. I've said this before, Krana. I think you mean BTJ. And I'm going to go BTJ, and I'm going to go Downs slightly over Reed in a full PPR, just a little safer to me. So thank you again. As we said, we're gonna do 3 questions per person as we get into the rapid fire mode here. I got offered Jay Daniels, Jay Taylor, and Cup for D. Henry and Love. I would probably take this trade. Yeah, that's a hefty package. You're getting 3 great options there. King Retros. We did get another super chat from FZ Ware. Thank you so much. Judy, Bigsby, or Rome, PPR Flex. I would go with somehow Judy's like the distant third still behind now Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman. Bigsby, I don't like the game flowness, so I'm just going to go for Rome. He actually saw the most first read targets out of the receivers last week. Maybe that post-rookie bye bump is here for Rome. And you're just going for the Hail Mary if you're going for this type of garbage. Bigsby shouldn't be garbage, but now Etienne's back. They're going to get game flowed out. Not a big fan there. So I'm going to go Rome in this case and just go for the big Hail Mary play there, FZ Ware. But yes, I do that trade, King Retros. Thomas Medina, here we go. Need 2 flexes. Rico, Waddle, JSN, TJ Hawk, advise por favor. I will advise, no doubt. I would go with probably JSN and Rico here. Let's see what TJ Hawk does before we fully light him up. And again, Waddle, is, I'm saying with most of these, he's kind of on the bench till I see it otherwise in most situations for me. Thomas Jr., Downs, or Tracy. Oh, Andrew, you super chat that one earlier. I remember that one being very, very tough. And we came down to Thomas Jr., then Tracy, and then Downs, but love them all. Dan rather, Deontay, Bucky, or Wicks. I would go Bucky here, and then Etienne asking Josh Downs or Devonta Smith. I'm going to go Josh. I'm going to go Devonta Smith. The Jags matchup is just too juicy. Deontay, Bucky, or Wicks. So I like going Bucky for that case. I do like Coker, but I don't like him over those ones. Dan asking for the streamer. Daniels or Cousins for Steve D. I'm definitely going Jaden Daniels, no doubt about it. Always Jaden Daniels. Ferguson or Taysom Hill. In Standard League, I actually like the Taysom Hill touchdown upside in that case, Steve D. Full PPR, Njoku or Hockenson. I'm definitely going Njoku there. Kyle Toons. Thorns Hammer. Algier, a sneaky better play today versus Dallas over Etienne. Yes, I would agree with that. And I don't think it's that sneaky. I think he's just better. Bruce K, early morning. Good luck, Bruce, to you as well. Thank you so much in here helping people out. I love to see it, Bruce. Great to see you over there, Dookie B. Love to see you in the early morning stream here. Michael Lopez, already starting London and Chase. Need one, Puka, McConkey, or Waddle. I got to go with Puka there. I know it's a little risky with the knee, but you got to fire him up. Do we play Puka? Yes, sir. We play Puka. Top 12 wide receiver. You saw it last week. For you. And Bruce, I see you're answering a bunch of questions, so I hope you don't think I'm ignoring you. I appreciate that greatly. I'm sure the chat appreciates it. We love to see it. And we are officially over 2,000 for the first time ever. 2,000 live concurrent viewers. Let's go, Wolfpack. Love to see it. Pollard or Chuba, full PPR. I got to go Pollard there. Lunch table legend. Love the name, by the way. Great matchup, though, against the Pats. Bench one. Tyrone, B-Rob, or Dobbins. Oh, I would bench Dobbins here, Scooter. Just seems to be running out of steam, and I love the rest of those options. What's up, Coach Zeke? Happy daylight savings. Yeah, that extra hour of sleep, not bad, huh? Got 2 leagues. I'm in both half PPR. Start Tracy or McConkey. I love them both this week, but I am absolutely lighting up Tyrone Tracy. And then already starting Reed, London, and JJ, and Gibbs, and HN. Yeah, no doubt. I think Tracy's the best start over McConkey, and I would agree with all your other choices. What a team you got over there, damn. Devonta Smith, Tyrone Tracy, Josh Downs, pick 2. Oh, man. I would probably go Tracy and Smith. As much as I love Josh Downs, again, 19.2 in PPR with Flacco as his QB. Man, those other two are just too juicy for me. Dowdle or Rashad White, full PPR. I'm going to go Rashad White. Definitely cooking right now in a full PPR. I do believe we got another super chat. So we did Horizon Fios. I've seen you pop up here before. Half PPR. Taysom Hill, Hunter Henry, or Hockenson. I would lean Taysom Hill. Hawkinson's right there too, but I do think the touchdown equity for Taysom Hill is rock solid with no Kendre Miller, no Jamal Williams, like the clear running back 2 on this team, plus Bub Means, no wide receiver 2 on the team. I think Jawan Johnson might even be out. So you could get like a touchdown in all 3 phases of the game potentially from Taysom Hill. So I am leaning to that upside. Carolina, could you ask for a better matchup for a like do it all type of piece? I don't think so. So give me Hunter Henry. For that one is where I am leaning. Thank you again so much for the super chat there. It is greatly appreciated. Alrighty, we left off. We had Coach Zeke. We had the Tyrone Tracy one. We're at Mark here. Dowdle or White. We answered Rashad White. Brian Thomas Jr. or Waddle. It is definitely Brian Thomas Jr. for me. And I know you're going Coker today. Need one flex for Coker, Eli Moore, Lockett, or Rico. Yeah, that's where I'm going to go Coker. Fire it off. I don't mind starting Dobbs. That's not a puke face, though. I think it's solid. Honestly, for losing those guys, I think you're in good shape. I prefer Coker as a stream, but, man, like all these guys are right in the same. I think Rico, honestly, Coach, if I had the option to go Rico, I probably would. Haley, so we got Hall and Gibbs. Yeah, yes, rock solid there. Kraft or Hockenson, Vikings D or Detroit D. We have I'm going Kraft over Hockenson, Eric, Mr. Lucky Schaefer, and I am going to go Vikings D over the Detroit's D today. Callie can hear you right for at the door. Oh, Callie, she's the best. No DK for Lockett. I like the Lockett, the idea there, but yeah, I'm still leaning there. Devonta Smith or Sutton for the flex. I would go Devonta Smith definitely in that matchup against the Jags. And I'm going to go Cousins over Mahomes, very, very slightly, though. Very close. Prescott or Knicks. I'm going to go Knicks over Prescott, Mr. Lucky Schaefer. And I'm going to go Dobbs. Pick one for the flex. I go Dobbs very slightly over Kraft. Very close between the two Packers guys. Pollard goes. I would go Marvin over him still, but he is going. Michael DeJohnny asking, needs 2 PPR. Chubb, Jordan Addison, TJ Hockenson, Hopkins. I am going to go Addison and Hopkins, I believe, for that one, Michael. B-Rob or Tracy, I am going Tyrone Tracy, baby. Firing that man up. As Michael Lopez reminds the good people doing the Lord's work, don't forget that like button. We are over 2,000 for the first time, I think, ever. Record-setting day. You love to see it. Thank you guys so much. Please do consider that thumbs up on YouTube, that heart button on Twitter. It would mean the world. Thank you so much for being here. Full PPR. Should I pick up Flacco and play over Geno? Pick up Washington and play if BTJ is out, or put Tillman in over BTJ? I would play Flacco over Geno, and I would definitely play BTJ. He is in. I would go BTJ. He is expected to play. Who do you like? Keenan Allen, Coker, or Addison? I like Coker. No, I like Addison there. 757 Bad News G. Tracy or Stevenson? I am going Tracy over Stevenson, and I like Stevenson a lot this week. But yeah, I'm going Tracy there. JXHE. Happy BR. Start 4. Addison, Andrews, Bigsby, BTJ, Pop, or Taysom. I'm going to start BTJ. I am going to start Taysom, Addison, and Andrews. So I'm benching Bigsby and Pop there, JXHE. And thank you again, AR Cannabis, for that super chat. So greatly appreciated. Good morning to you as well. Adam Driscoll, Kyler, or Stafford? I'm going to go Kyler. 20 points in 3 of his last 4. Seems to be cooking despite the tough matchup today. I'm definitely going Kelsey over Pitts. Love the matchup against Tampa Bay. Love that he was just the back to the main guy. Rank these defenses. Saints, KC, and Philly. I do have rankings over at RoseStreetJournal.com, but I'll rank them Saints, then KC, then Philly. The exact order you typed them in, JC. Brian Robinson, Ramondre, Irving, Reed, Tracy. Need 1 running back, 1 flex. I would go with Reed and Tracy is where I am leaning there, CJ. Matt Bryant, Waddle or Jaden Reed in standard today. Whether in GB looks brutal. I have to go check this one because I have not seen how bad that looks, but I'm still going Jaden Reed. Still the big play guy there. I would go Kareem Hunt over Nacua. Unless it's full PPR, then I would switch it over to Nacua. But yeah, I like Kareem Hunt, just so safe for 20 carries and a good matchup this week. For you, Brady Loazel. Patio, need 3. Chase Brown, Kincaid, Taysom Hill, Xavier Legette, and Tyrone Tracy. It's easily Tracy and Chase Brown. Those are like the no-brainers. And then I honestly just like the upside of Taysom Hill the most of these other options. And then we've got EC, full PPR. So Tracy over Ramondre in the flex spot. Yes, I am going Tracy over Ramondre over a lot of people there. No doubt about it. Then we're going on over to a super chat from Quinn. Thank you so much, Quinn, for the super chat. Asking Waddle, Dobbs, Wandale, Lockett, Downs, or Mooney. Pick 2. Downs is head and shoulders above this group for me. The easy lock. And the next part comes down to Dobbs in a great shootout style matchup today. Running the most routes. He's really killed it since that like little temper tantrum. Now he's back. Or maybe not a temper tantrum. Whatever the reason was, he was sent off or he didn't show up to practice. Everything seems to be smoothed over. He seems to be in better spirits, and he's been killing it. So him or Mooney is what it comes down to. And I'm going to go Mooney over Dobbs very, very slightly. That's tough. I don't feel great about it. I really do like Dobbs today. I think he's going to be a great chain mover. But the weather concerns, all that stuff, leads me to Downs and Mooney for you, Quinn. Thank you again so much for the super chat. I do appreciate it. And I'm bumping down. I keep not going Waddle, so I need to bump down the rankings so that it reflects that. He's on the bench till I see it from him in most situations. All righty. We have a few more minutes here. We have a minute left, and we got another super chat. So you know what? That's probably going to wrap us up. But let's see here. Levi C. Should I trade Amari Cooper and Bigsby for Pittman and Stevenson? Yes, I'd rather have Pittman and Stevenson, especially with Flacco likely at QB. I think Stevenson over Bigsby is a big win as long as Etienne is healthy. And then Cooper versus Pittman is pretty similar. The ceiling with Cooper is higher, no doubt. We got Josh Allen. But ultimately, as long as we have him, Joe Flacco at QB, like Pittman and them are negligible, and I think the upgrade at running back is quite stark there. So yeah, I like pulling that trigger for you there. All right, we'll wrap up with a couple more quick questions. I'm just finding where we left off. We have so many questions today, and thank you again so much. The most generous day of Super Chats. If anyone wants to toss out a Super Chat, it will be the last question we do, but I'm just finding the spot here. You guys are so generous, though. What a record-setting day. 2,157 of you here, and we did get one, so we're going to end up with Mass Football Guy. It's Dad Bod. What's up, Dad Bod? Let's go. Kyler or Burrow to wrap us up, Mass Football Guy. I believe out of Tewksbury, if I'm not mistaken. Tewksbury just destroyed my North Andover Scarlet Knights where I teach. If I'm not mistaken, I don't remember correctly. I maybe Mass Football Guy. I can't remember exactly. But Kyler or Burrow. I am going to go Burrow. I know it's a little risky without T. Higgins. I know he took a big hit last week. I know Kyler has 20 in 3 of his last 4. Chicago's a little bit of a scary matchup, though, whereas the Raiders is just a complete and utter disaster, dumpster fire over there. So I am going to go Burrow very, very slightly over Kyler. The ceiling's probably a little higher with Kyler, but I still the Chicago matchup, the Call of Duty recently coming out. I don't buy that, but I do buy that. I think just Burrow is rock solid. Like if we had Jamar Chase going for 130 and 3 touchdowns today, would anybody be surprised against the Raiders? And of course, he benefits from that too. Does Joe Burrow? So I'm going to go Burrow for that one. Mass Football Guy. Alrighty, guys. What a morning. Thank you again so much. But that is the 2 hours plus. I went a little over for the good folks out there. On your way out, that heart button on Twitter, the thumbs up on YouTube. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to your question. We're just crushing it. I mean, you guys are the best. You guys have helped us grow so much. And again, 42 Super Chats. You guys are so incredibly generous. A record-setting day for views, for Super Chats. You guys are amazing. It is so greatly appreciated. On your way out, please do consider hitting that subscribe button. We'd love to have you come back. I'll be live again Tuesday for your waiver wires at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Then we also go live Thursday at 6:30 p.m. for your Thursday night sit starts. And then, of course, we have the show every Sunday at 8 a.m. A record. So this is going to be a tough one to top. 2,069 of you as we wrap up here and 42 Super Chats on the day. You guys are the best. My rankings and all my content is up at rotostreetjournal.com. You can see the updated rankings. I'm going to push them through right when this signs off. You can find my 3 players to stash ahead of the trade deadline I wrote ahead of this weekend, plus a ton of other great articles from our staff there at rotostreetjournal.com. And I, of course, am at rotostreetwolf on Twitter. Again, likes, subs, all that stuff as we head out here from a amazing Sunday morning. Thank you again so much. Best of luck in week 9, Wolfpack. Hopefully all these questions come right. I don't miss a single one, and you guys have the best possible Sundays. Get those W's, and we'll hopefully see you on Tuesday. A world full of fancy sheep, guys. Be the wolf. Later.